I know a lot of us probably are, but as far as our data, we're not quite ready yet. So that's what we are here to do, is to go over how to get all of that prepared. So I have printed out for you the rollover prep instructions, but I also wanted to let you know that it is also in the data entry guide that is on Live Binders. So if you have not bookmarked this yet, please do so, because I am trying to add new content, update instructions as needed. Also for Mary and Marcy, that there is a CalPads, so don't go into that one unless you really want to know my world. Aeries Data Entry Guide. I also have the attendance guide in here as well. So they no longer have their separate guide, that binder that they had. So in the Live Binder, under the Procedures tab, there is rollover prep, and there's also the rollover checklist and the after rollover checklist. I've printed all three of these for you. So rollover prep, you can print any sections that you want. So just kind of a reminder, the first thing you're going to be doing in Aeries is skipping all your pre-enroll students. So as you've been pre-enrolling your kindergartners and your TKs and any new kids for other grade levels, their status tag in Aeries should be an asterisk. So if I go into Manzanita, and
Prince Watson.
Watson.
Last name is Watson.
Okay, so when I do just the search, it shows the asterisk there. But also on his screen, he is surrounded in green and he shows pre-enrolled. So that's where your first step is going to be in your query, skipping your pre-enrolled students so that you're not affecting any information on them, because as you're pre-enrolling them, you should be making sure that their next grade is the same as the grade that you're enrolling them in, because you're enrolling them for next year. If you were to not catch that, they would roll up to first grade. Same way, making sure that their next school is your school, so if they roll there. So what we're doing in the rollover process is actually, in case you haven't been doing it on a regular basis with new kids, we're making sure that we're going to do a mass change to change that next grade field to be the next grade for those students. So basically this would be change to next grade to 0 if grade equals -1. So that's moving all your TKs up to kindergarten, so that when Seth and I push the button to do rollover, all of your TKs will automatically be kindergarten next year. Then you'll do it for kindergarten to first grade to second grade to third grade, and on up your scale. When you get to 12th grade, don't worry about them.
And then 8th grade, just make sure we switch the next school to the high school Aeries.
Yes. Same way for Sequoia's 5th grade database. Next grade is 6, next school is 49. There is, excuse me, a query already loaded if you don't want to type that. Mouse bounces around. So to get, come on, work with me. Mouse, there it is. With the recording going, the mouse doesn't quite act the way it should. So when you're in query, if you click on this load button, and up here in the query name filter, if you just type change, all of the different change query thingies that you're gonna do is already here. So this particular one is called change next grade. So it's this one right here. So you don't have to worry about typing it, just change the to and the from. So this is changing student next grade to 1 if grade equals 0. So grade is their current grade for this year, and the 1 or the 2 is what their grade is going to be next year. So you'll just go through that for each grade level. I did add to the live binder 3 little videos. One is rollover prep part 1, and that goes over this part and what's in one of the boxes. Rollover prep part 2 is going over the information for all sites, and then there's an after rollover video.
So Denise, if we have a student of any grade that we know is not returning, like we have a family that's moving, would I change the next school to the 900 before we do the roll too?
Yes. And that gets to the all sites thing. So first thing we're going to work on is the changing the next grade for next year, and then you're going to go through your information in the box appropriate for the grade level of your school. They're both basically the same information, just one is going to do it for 5th graders and the other sites are going to do it for 8th graders. So it's this, for K-5 sites, you're marking all your 5th graders. Next school is 49, unless you're a K-8 for your younger database, Tori, so yours wouldn't be this box. So K-5 and K-8s, basically you're doing the same thing, like I said, but you're doing it for 5th graders or 8th graders. So 5th graders, their next school is going to be 49, and there is a change next school 49. So for Shasta and Igo, basically you're not going to have to worry about doing this. So you're going to do the K-8 part. So don't worry about the 5th grade because you guys are both K-8s. So that's basically the only difference for the sites. So K-8s, you're going to be marking for all of the 8th graders, your highest grade level. Next school is 900. So that they roll into the inactive. And there is a query that you can just load. So you'll see that step 2, they're both EOY status is 230. So EOY status on a student is found on their demographics, student data 2. So end of year is these 2 fields here, and completion status is these 2 fields here. The end of year, this leave date populates from the front of the student data screen. So you'll mark all of your highest grade level, whether it's 5th grade or 8th grade, as a 230 on their EOY status. So instead of going student by student by student, you're going to load the change query. So change stu EOY, which is that field right there for status, to 230 if grade equals 8 for the K-8s or 5 for the K-5s. And basically the 230 code means that they are complete or exit finish the highest grade. So then the next step, number 3, for both is the same thing, and that's make the leave date equal to the last day of school. And again, there is a query already loaded. Just make sure that you change the date that's already in the query, because the query was created a couple of years ago, so that date doesn't change, so make sure you change the date before you run it. And that is highlighted there in red. Don't forget to change the date. So make sure that you change that. And that is going to populate the leave date that is actually here on the school leave date here that will automatically show up on the student data 2 screen. So the next step is basically the same. So step number 4 is completion status 480, and that is both for 5th and 8th grade. For Stellar, your high school, your seniors, the correct graduation code, whether it's, graduated or didn't graduate. So again, it's marking the completion status, which is this code right here. The 480 is promoted, matriculated. So 5th graders matriculating up to the junior high, 8th graders matriculating up to the high school. Then step 5, again, is basically the same thing for both 5th grade and 8th grade, is the completion status date. And that's this date right here on the student data 2 screen. And that is, again, equal to the last day of school. So again, when you load up that query, make sure that you change the date. So the query, if you stay on your query screen as you're doing things, your filter will stay there. But once you leave the query screen, you have to put your filter back on. So we were doing load, so change grad date to last school day. So change grad date to last school day. So see how it says 6/1/2012? You would change that to 6/6/2018. Then you would click on run, and it'll pop up a message saying how many records it's going to affect. It shows in the video. I don't want to do that to Pam's data right now. So that is the first section that is specific to grade levels. So then the next page, and I believe this is also the next little video that I've loaded up, is what all sites are going to do. So the first thing that all sites are going to do, just in case we have any 121 programs hanging out there open, just for giggles, run the change PGM code 121 end date. If there are any open, it's going to be the last day of school and it will automatically populate it. But the 121 is school-wide Title I. At one point, we had to tell CalPads that a school site was a school-wide Title I school. CalPads now have it figured out who they are. So we no longer send that program code to them. But just in case there are any hanging out there, we want to close them out. So then all sites are then going to run the change PGM 191 end date. That closes your homeless programs for the school year, because the homeless programs are only open for the school year. We do a new survey at the beginning of the next year. We create new program records. So that will be using the last day of school as the end date. And let's see, I have a note to run this twice. Once as it's been loaded, and then once changing the PGM EED to PED. So basically what that's meaning is if I go load, so right now it's saying change the eligibility end date. So you run it once, changing the eligibility end date, and then run it again, changing that E to a P, so then it's program end date. Because one is eligibility and one is actually participation. So the P is participation end date. And that is only to make sure that the record is completely closed.
So you want that PGM there twice?
This PGM here is letting the query know that that's the table that holds this field. because I'm changing information for students in their program. So the PGM here with the period is connecting this field to that table. Same way with over here, it's connecting the code to that table. If you didn't have that in there, it may not connect the two and it might try to change something else. So if you click load, it's already there. So it's just changing that E to a P. So you're going from eligibility end date to participation end date. When you put the record in CalPaths, or excuse me, put the record in Aeries, when you have your highlight state reporting fields turned on, this one here, the fields that are required are highlighted in green. So when you put in the homeless program code, it highlights which date fields to actually use. Some that have been here a while are in the habit of putting it in both places. That's why changing this is to make sure that both rows are closed out, because the program, come on, where'd we go? There we are. Because if you remember what the student program screen looks like here, cooperate,
It's way.
cooperate, come on. There we go.
Jordan, Justina,
Justina?
Jordan, Justina, yeah. Jordan.
Okay, so here's her homeless program. So when you're first putting it in, eligibility is the only dates that really need to be put in. This is an enhancement that Aeries has put in because when we were in CS, you really didn't know, is it eligibility or is it participation? So we were in the habit of putting it in both areas just to make sure it got pulled. But with them coming to web, they've been able to highlight which we actually need. So here, homeless is eligibility, TK is participation. So, you know, to make it easier for you guys to know which place to put the date, as long as you have your highlight state reporting fields checked, when you put the code in, it'll tell you, okay, we need participation. So if you want to put them in both dates, that's okay. But then that's the reason for running the query twice. So then the third thing that all of the sites are going to be doing is another program change. So you're going to be closing out your TK programs. And that's the 185 code. So just again, click load, change PGM, and what I'm kind of in the habit of is like while I'm in my query, load, pick that change, run it, load, pick the next change one, run it, load, pick the next change, run it. That way all of my change things are still there and I don't have to filter again for change. So this will close out TK programs. You're still skipping your pre-enrolls. You have not taken that off yet. So it is going to put an end date on your current TKs. So then the next thing is to remove that skip query. And then number 4 is verifying that the rest of the students have their next school populated correctly. So because if any student has 0 in their next school, they're automatically going into the inactive school. So if you had a pre-enrolled student that you forgot to make sure that the next school was your school and it was 0, it's not going to show up in your database next year. You'll still be able to pull them in, but it's just a lot easier if everybody rolls the way that they should. So this particular query is change student next school to XX, which is your school code. So for Turtle Bay, that's 22. If grade less than, I say 5, and I say only on Sequoia it would be less than 8, but that would also be Juniper and Turtle Bay and Shasta and Igo. Make sure that it's less than 8th grade with your school number, because the K-5 sites, your 5th graders are going to 900, so you don't want to change them because you've already set them to 900, and your 8th graders you've already set to 900. So that's why I have the less than 5 or less than 8. So that will take care of your pre-enrolled students to make sure they roll into your next year's database. So then I have place a keep query. These 3 things are kind of an update to how we're doing things. So now placing a keep query, and it's, again, keeping your pre-enrolled students, so that similar to your original one where you were skipping your pre-enrolls. Now you're going to keep your pre-enrolls. Then you're going to load change next grade, and this is just to verify that the next grade is equal to grade. So I do have a change next grade to load, but you're changing next grade to -1 if their grade equals 1. So this is on your pre-enrolls only, just to verify that that field is populated correctly. So then you would run it again for 0 to 0. So next grade is 0, current grade is 0 on your pre-enrolls, and on up the line, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, just to make sure, double guarantee that your pre-enrolls are going to roll over correctly. Then if you're leery about doing it, you can run a list first to verify. So if you ran this list, it's going to list your students with their names, their grade, and their next grade. So if you didn't want to run this query first, you could run the list and kind of go down and go, okay, yeah, everybody's good. Then you don't have to run the change query. So, I do give you an option. You don't have to. You could check first, but if you do happen to see some that aren't matching up, then run the change query. So then before next, we go remove that keep query. And in case you don't remember how to remove one, if I put a skip or a keep, it shows up here. So if I do come on, let's go down. So if I did that keep query, keep stu if td equals asterisk, it's going to show me in 2 places. Wow, there's 52 pre-enrolled kids. They're at Manzanita. So it shows me in 2 places. It shows me on the query screen that I have a keep going on, and I can undo it here, or in the menu, it tells me that records are being skipped. So when it says records are being skipped, it's skipping everybody who's not tagged pre-enrolled. So to remove it, you can either remove it on the query screen or reset it there, and that removes the query. So it no longer shows up down here. So that's how you would remove the query. So for step 5, we are going to be working with our SDC students. So for those sites that have SDC, you will be doing step number 5. And this one I had to update because we had added some more codes to the student program screen that's on the demographics for the attendance program here. That breaks them out so they report separately on attendance, because something else that has to do with my reporting doesn't pull from this program here. So we had to make this list bigger so that we could get the combination of a TK SBC student or an SDC who's on independent study, or an SDC who's on home hospital. Or like at Sycamore, there's the dual immersion kids. So you've got a dual immersion TK, you've got a dual immersion on independent study. So there's a bunch of different codes there now that we have to make sure before rollover happens that their next program field, which is down here, is populated correctly. So after you've removed that keep query, there are some changes that you're going to do. And I did not load these, so you will want to be able to type these. If you have the live binder open on a tab, you can easily highlight that, copy it, and then paste it into the query. So there is that little cheat that you can do instead of having to type it out. So if I go to queried and I right click and I paste it, or Control C to copy and Control V to paste, then if I'm running that, I'm telling it to change the student's next program to S if their current program is S. So your current SDC students roll into SDC. That way, once rollover has happened and Christina sends you your list of SDC kids, you'll be able to run a query, list do, last name, first name, if SP equals S, to see, okay, do you have the same kids that Christina gave you? Okay, who do you not have, or who do you have that's not on her list? So having that after rollover guarantees that what's currently SDC is going to be SDC next year. So the next one is changing their next program to S if they end the year on F. So F is a TK SDC student. So if we happen to have any of those, and you have a student with an F in their program field, we want their next program to be regular SDC. So that's going to change that. It may show 0 when you run it, which is perfectly fine because you may not have had any TK SDC depending on the grade levels at your site. Then the next one you would run, you would change, it stays S here, but the second S would change to J, which is in case you had any SDC who ended the year on independent study, which as a reminder, for an SDC student to go on independent study, there has to be an addendum on their IEP so that they can go on independent study. And there are times when we have them end the year on not necessarily just SDC, but
I was gonna say,
our own kids, as long as they're getting their work turned in that last day of school for it to count, then they can end the year on SDC, or excuse me, on independent study. So this change to NSP to S if SP equals J is making sure that those students who are SDC on independent study, they're going to start next year in SDC. And then the last one for the SDC, changing the second S to L, if you had any SDC kids who were on home instruction, my code is HH, which is home hospital, but it's home and hospital, so it's kind of an and or type thing. So if by chance you had any, it will change that. But on those two last ones, your sites better than I do. I have this as just in case, but I'm going to assume, because we only really have 2 kids on home hospital contracts right now. So if at your site you don't have anybody on a home hospital contract, then you don't need to worry about changing the L code because you don't have any L codes. So some of that, I'm going to leave your discretion. If you want to run it, it's not going to hurt anything. It'll come out saying 0. So then for Sycamore, I have for you step 6. So it's dual immersion students, which eventually dual immersion is going to end up to Sequoia. I'm not sure what year they're adding it. And in case it gets added to any other school sites, you guys will need this as well. So basically, it's changed to next program to D, which is the dual immersion code, if they're currently in dual immersion. So here again, you know your school site. So if all of your dual immersion kids are planning on moving and staying in dual immersion, so I know they're wanting to add the second grade. So if all of your current first graders in the program are going to stay in it, then you want to make sure that their next program shows that they're staying in dual immersion. So then, same way with the code C, I believe is your TK dual immersion. So they're going to be moving from TK dual immersion to dual immersion. So if you have any that are not, once you've run the change query for everybody, go back to those individuals and take it out. Because if next program is blank, that puts them into regular program. So same way with on SDC. If after you've run that, if next year it turns out that the student was exited from SDC, you just make sure that you take that program code out. And then the last one I think is your dual immersion on independent study. I think that's what G is. So it's just making sure that everybody who's currently dual immersion is going to be dual immersion next year. And then, like I said, take out any individuals that you know are not going to continue in that program. So then once you have done all of your, mass changes, then you're going to start on your little individual thingies. And one of the first individual thingies is your retentions. So you've already changed everybody's next grade to their next grade that they're going to. So if you happen to have a kindergartner or a first grader, or even a second grader, whatever grade, and you have a retention letter signed, make sure I get a copy of that, because the auditors will ask me for them. You need to go and mark your retention. So on, say, Sally Summers currently is kindergarten, and we've already, with the mass change, moved her next grade is first grade. So I'm going to need to look up Sally Summers and manually change her next grade field to kindergarten, because she's going to repeat it for a second year. And she's going to come back to my school, so that should have stayed the same. But then there's a retention screen in Aeries to fill out. And here in the data guide, I am showing you where to get to it. It's student data, guidance, and retentions. So under student data, guidance, retentions, and then you would add a new record.
Go to Hedrick.
I love your brain, Pam.
I know.
You're just
And this is what I mean. You guys know your data better than I ever will. I just, every once in a while we'll be able to throw out a name.
No way. Tanner's his first name.
Okay, so currently he's in first grade. So his next grade is currently second grade.
Which is right. Thought you were going to show him the retention.
Oh,
part. He was
okay.
retained in August.
Okay, so if he was going to repeat first grade this year, we would be changing this next grade to 1, and then you would also then go to the student data, guidance, and retentions, and you would do add new record, where she shows he was retained first grade for the 17-18 year. So he was a first grader for the 16-17 year. So generally I say the date should be the date that the form was signed,
That's what that date is.
and then you're going to mark the code. It's a drop-down list, so we would mark retained. The non-proficient, that is something that's, I think, has to do with high school, but I don't think we're doing anything with that. Then you would pick the grade that they are being retained in, and then just to make it easier to know what's going on, then we add the little note like what she has added here. Retained in first grade for 17-18 school year. That kind of makes it so when you first look at it, you're not having to sit there and think, okay, what year was that for? It's there. So the more information that you can put in there makes it a whole lot easier. Then the retention form, like I said, a copy comes to me. I believe you give a copy to the parents. So you've been uploading to student documents?
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Student documents, retention letter. Oh, I put a retention form, okay. So
It's
yeah,
all in there.
retention letters
So I
going to
added
student
it.
documents. That way it's also there in case someone here at the district office needs to see the actual form. Or if I didn't get a copy and the auditors come and ask me, then I can go here and find it and print it out for the auditors. So yes, retention letters get uploaded. And I think I'm going to add that to the instructions. So I will be updating the online data guide, because I don't have that in your instructions here. Okay. So then now we're going to get to Tori's question. And this is, again, we're doing our onesies, twosies, because we've mass changed everybody. So now, if it's before rollover, and you have been told by a parent, we are not returning to Stellar next year, then you will look up that student, mark their next school as 900, so they will not roll into your database, they will roll into the inactive school, which of course, if they change their mind next year and they do come back, you can easily pull that student back in. You'll mark their EOY status, which was that student data 2 that we marked as a 230 with the mass change. If it's somebody other than a 5th or 8th grader, because your 5th graders have matriculated on, so you don't need to worry about that. Or your 8th graders. So if it's anybody other than your 5th or 8th graders, you will mark their EOY status, and again, this is before rollover, with a 140, and then when you get a CUM request, if it's before rollover, go back and change that EOY status to a 160. If it happens to be after rollover that you get the CUM request, there are 2 options. I give you one option here in writing, and that's to let me know so I can go in and fix it. The other option, still let me know so that I can make sure it's fixed in CalPads, but you can go into the 900 school, because I believe everybody has access to that, find your student and change their 140 to a 160. But if you're not comfortable doing that, just make sure that you email me and say, hey, I have a CUM request for Sally Summers. You know, I marked her as a 140, can you mark her as a 160? That way, I'll mark it in Aeries and make sure it's marked correctly in CalPads. Then also on those students, mark their leave date on the student data 1 screen as the last day of school. Again, that's before rollover. After rollover, it's going to be a little bit different way that we handle things. But before rollover, on those kids that you know are not coming back, next school 900, 140 unless you have your U-Prep list. But then again, that's on 5th graders. But for, say, Turtle Bay and Sequoia, if it happens to be a current 6th grader that's going into 7th grader and they're on a U-Prep list, because they're not your highest grade level, you will do this. You'll mark them 900. Since they're on a U-Prep list, that's your CUM request. So they would be on a 160. But if it's just from the parent saying, we're moving out of state or we're moving to Southern California, if they're moving out of state, go ahead and use the 200. But if they say they're moving within California, until you get that CUM request, it's a 140.
Wow, did you guys get all that?
You guys are smart. So I just wanted to pop in really quick, and I'm just gonna interrupt Denise. I'm gonna start in May.
You were
I do it in May.
And a little caveat, we are recording.
Good. Hang in there.
Do you want me to
No,
stop?
no, thank you. I'm just gonna say really quick, thank you. Is everybody surviving May? Beautiful. If she keeps it recording, then it keeps it all on the up and up, so. But anyway, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done this year and continue to do. This is such a busy time of year. I know how hard it is for you, your administrators, to be off site. They were gone yesterday. You guys are gone today. I'm sure we have a national school closure day today because we know a school can't run without you. Or if it is, it's like on two wheels. So thank you for coming. I just wanted to say that really quick and know that you're appreciated for everything you do. And you guys get to come back, I think, in just next week or a couple weeks for business services, right? Wow. So we are here to help. I wouldn't know how to help you, but you can always reach out. Because Denise is right next door and I'll just ask her.
Just ask her.
Anyway, I will just ask her. But anyway, thanks, ladies. You're very much appreciated, truly. Thank you, Denise, and thanks for the reminder recording.
We love the beeping out.
We do have some fields set that should be cleared, either before rollover or maybe cleared after rollover. And it looks like I have it as after rollover. And that is that program field on the student data screen, except for the SDC and dual immersion. So after rollover, it's just kind of a reminder here that these need to be reset. Also the U7, the image release field on the student data screen, I'm going to try and get those moved over to authorizations. If I can get it done before rollover, great. Otherwise, if it's after rollover, I can always look in the previous year database to make sure it gets over into authorizations. Because authorizations is where it prints on the student emergency card. So then after rollover for all sites is the skip query to skip your current TK student. So we're in 18-19 and we're wanting to skip our TK students. So then there's the change query to change the TK codes to blank. So basically what this is saying, if you have a TK student that, because we did not, and this is kind of a double check because we are doing that change the next program, but this is a double check to make sure that the TK program didn't stay there. Let's say that maybe you pulled somebody from another site and maybe that site forgot or lost track of where they were at and didn't run that query, or you're pulling them in from 900 and that program code is still there but they're not a TK student. Running this change TK codes to blank will double check and make sure that anybody who's not TK doesn't have a TK code in there. So then reset, remove that skip query. And again, this is a double check to make sure that your home hospitals and your independent studies are removed, because I don't think that we changed those. No, we didn't. The only one we did was, yeah, so I don't have on here anything about changing the TK codes to blank, so you will need to run those. Because the TKs, it's the SDC TK that we changed. So the regular TK kids, unless I update this again and have you run it before rollover, but it's okay to do this after rollover. So you're basically skipping your TKs in the 18-19 year, and then you're gonna run this change TK codes to blank. So any TKer this year that still has the code in that program field on the demographic screen, you'll be blanking it out. So then you'll remove that skip query, so now you're seeing your TK kids for 18-19. And then you're changing the program. So if you had anybody on home hospital, I know there's one site that does, So unless that student happens to be doing home hospital next year, which you may not know right after rollover, you're gonna blank out that program and make it, it'll go to blank based on how the query is written. Same way with anybody who ended the year on independent study. They're not starting the year on independent study. So they rolled over, that program code stayed there, so we're blanking it out. And then again, after rollover, making sure all of your TK students have their program field populated and their 185 special program code. So I know, it's kind of redundant, double check, but double check is what keeps our data clean. So we want to perform our double checks and make sure. So the first one is you're in your 1819 database, changed your STU SP to the TK. Okay, I think I have that wrong. Let's make a change on our hard copies because I've got to change that SP to TK and actually change, so where it says change STU SP to TK, that's actually A. So you need to put the program code in there, not the TK. So you're gonna go change STU SP to A, which is the code, if grade equals -1. So that's basically populating this with code A, which is marking them as a TK, if their grade level is the TK grade level. So that would be a -1 there. Or actually, I think it says TK up here, doesn't it?
Allison assumption.
But the query has to be -1 for the grade level. So I will change that on the live binder, but on your hard copy, instead of TK, it needs to be A. So in your 1819 year, you're mass populating in case you missed it when you were pre-enrolling them. And then the other thing is you're going to list students with their PGM, so the program screen, last name, first name, SP, so that's this field here, special program. Program CD, so the program screen code, and the program screen's start date if the grade is -1. And students may have more than one entry, so that's kind of double check the names on the list by looking them up in Aeries. Also, locking them down to -1 helps. So I'm just going to run it here just so you guys can see what it looks like. And this is on her 17-18 data, so this will be her current kids. So you have everybody marked. And that PSD is program start or participation start date. Okay. I remember something I wanted in there now. After SP, put the 2 letters GR. So after this SP, the space GR. So I'm going to be including the grade level in this query because you saw how many kids I had, but those were also probably, this way I'm guaranteeing that I'm only seeing TK kids.
Those are all the current TKs. Right.
So all of these kids have a 185. If you saw any with a blank, you would need to go look up that student and give them their 185 program code with their program start date of the first day of school. And so this one also has a second code, so I'm not looking for those. So if you happen to see more than the one type of code, you can say if equal to 181, 185. And so I'm only seeing the 185s. So then you could also filter and say is not equal to 185. So if you had any blanks, the blanks would show up. So there's different ways of filtering it in your results. And you could even, if you were saying if not equal to 185, and let's say, and not equal to, say 191 is the other code you have there, this should leave only blanks. Then you could say keeps due. That automatically does a keep query, and then you could go to that program code and arrow through the kids and put their programs in. All in how you want to work it. If you are more comfortable working off of a list, then go ahead and do that. So that's another little update thing I need to put on there. And I like to see the grade just to guarantee that I'm only seeing, even though I put if grade equals -1, it's the way my mind works. I want to see it and double check, okay, yeah, it is pulling only those. So then the next thing and the last thing is clearing the SSA date. This is the Safe Schools Act date in discipline. And I'm not going to go over it a whole lot right now because it is on the agenda to kind of go over a little bit later. But this is the query to change, the date automatically. And in the opening meeting, and again, this is after rollover. So in the opening meeting, I will double check the 3-year date and give you the correct year to put in. I have it down to run it once a year, but if you want to run it on a monthly basis, you can do that as well. Just change the month. And basically what this is doing is wiping out the date if it's over 3 years old. And that is, like I said, found on the student's discipline screen. It's this date right here. And we can go ahead and cover it now. Safe Schools Act, there are certain infractions that are marked on the suspendable offense code table that will automatically populate this date if they have that infraction. So if they had an infraction down here that had the
Bates, maybe.
the X,
BAT, yeah.
okay, so back in 2015, the student had this infraction here on the suspendable offense code table is marked that it violates the Safe Schools Act. And technically, and in ed code, it does state that teachers need to be notified for 3 years that they have a student that has violated the Safe Schools Act. The SSA date will put an asterisk next to the student's name on the class list. So if your teachers ever ask you, why does the student have an asterisk? Then you can tell them, oh, that's because they have a discipline incident. You are free to check the CUM, or we can look here in Aeries and find what incident matches that date, and you can look at the description.
Some teachers will ask say you did one today, tomorrow when the teacher logs into attendance, they get a little notification. So you're telling them, by state law, you have to let them know. So they'll get a little notification, and then they might come in and say, well, what happened? Or they can look in areas like Denise
Right.
says, but they are notified when the next time they log in. Another thing, maybe put in your notes for August to remember, if you print class lists and use those to post for parents, white out that little asterisk and make a copy before you post. Otherwise, you'll put it out there and people will walk up and you'll have, one kid out of 30 and they have that little star and some like, what's that mean? So you don't want to put it out there for parents.
Amy?
So to follow the state law of notifying teachers, Is that sufficient? Is that sufficient that shows up in Aeries? Are we,
Yes,
do any schools do anything else? I'm just wondering.
it's probably not a bad idea, and I'm not sure if anybody does it, but shoot that, if it's at a elementary level and you only have one teacher that you need to worry about, shoot that teacher an email that, you know, hey, so-and-so got suspended, take a look at discipline. Although if they're the one who wrote the referral, they may already know what the incident was. But if it was something that happened outside their classroom, they may not be aware. Also, if it happens to be a student that receives special ed services, their case manager needs to know. Christina needs to know. On students that come into your school, when you get the CUM, one of the things that you should be doing is going through that CUM and looking to see if there is any suspension within the last 3 years and notify the teachers, because it's not going to show up in Aeries once you put it in, because it didn't happen here.
Well, are we doing it wrong? We put the date up there. We don't make an entry, but we put the date in the SSA, so when the teacher logs in, they get notified. So I can always mark that I've notified them. If they
Okay.
don't pay attention.
Denise, we used to send the teachers a slip for incoming students that had that, but SIA has told us that we can't identify the name of the student. We can say that they need to come and look at a certain CUM, but we can't use the student's name, is what we've been told by SIA, because it's supposed to be confidential for the child.
So then maybe not in the email, but you can physically tell the teacher.
Yes,
Or tell the teacher,
just to
I
come and
placed a
look.
CUM in your box that
Yeah.
you need to take a look at.
That's right.
So that would work.
So should we be using, we put the date there.
And that actually kind of sounds like a good idea to do.
I put the date there too. I
Yeah.
can sometimes put something in the, I red flag it and put a comment.
The date already populated once there was one.
Well, if they're hours, it's automatically populated. What Pam is saying is on a student that's not an RSD student, so say a student comes over from Enterprise and there is a suspension within the last 3 years, she's going ahead and putting the date in there.
Look up Ron B, what's his last name? He came from a new school. See, look at him, see if he has one. See, he just enrolled, but see, we put one that,
You've got a
oh,
5-2
he got a new one recently, but we had a prior one from last year from Boulder Creek, so we had the date there for Boulder Creeks, but we didn't make an entry because he wasn't our student. But
So
then
then he
got
had
another one
something here,
recently,
so he's got
So
something
it
more recent.
updated the date.
Yeah. Yeah, so it will update to date, but if you have a student that hasn't done anything in those 3 years, then you'll be wiping it out if the date is past that 3 years. So that's where, so next year 18, 17, 16, 15. So it would be like 8/15/2015 that you would put in that query. So anything before that date, it would wipe it out, where it would not wipe this one out. Okay, so that's pre-rollover. I printed out checklists for you. Those are also found here in the data guide, in case you lose this one or you want one for next year. Again, you can print these. And I put this together as a help, because knowing how busy everybody gets, you could be in the middle of doing your rollover prep stuff and have to stop and help a parent. So if you have your checklist out while you're doing your rollover stuff, if you're working on your next grade field populated, as you do your -1 to 0, check it off. Then you get to 0 to 1, check it off. Oh yes, how may I help you? Oh yes, we can do this, and you've left your screen, you're doing whatever, and then you come back, okay, where was I? Oh, okay, next, so put that query back on, and now I'm on changing 1 to 2. Then I run that one, and I check it off. So, you know, you can get interrupted who knows how many times. If you've got your checklist, at least it's gonna help you remember where you were at. Then once you get through all your grades, you can check that one off. So I've gotten through all my grades, I can check off the big one. Okay, so now I'm on my next school. And I get sidetracked. Okay, come back. Oh yeah, I haven't started this. Start working on it. Check it off as you get through it. So use it. I highly suggest using it because even stuff that I do, I've got checklists of, okay, so what do I, oh yeah, okay, let's go here. So there's even one for after rollover, and it's on the back of this. Oh, I think it's on the back of yours. So this is clearing the image release field. I have clear outs due AP1. After 17, 18, you don't need to do that. So I can actually remove that from the list when I update it. Then again, clearing out your STU programs. Okay, yep, I did the home hospital. Oh, you need what? Okay. Okay, where was I? Oh, clear out my independent studies. Oh, yes, let's go check that in. Okay, where was I? Oh, SSA dates. Okay, let's run that query. Click, it's done.
Yep.
Okay, I need to double check my SDC students, double check my TK students. Did my retentions stay retentions, or did something happen in that kid that we retained in kindergarten, did they go to first grade? So, just double checks to make sure that your new data is correct. And again, that is there for you to be able to print out.
Denise,
Yes,
does this have to be done before school is out, or is it?
your rollover prep needs to be completed by June 20th. And that I have that as a bullet on the agenda. And sorry, I forgot to mention that. The rollover prep stuff needs to be done by June 20th because Seth and I are targeting June 25th to actually do the rollover. So I think some of you, the 20th is your last day. Some of you are done before then. So, and I know that there are some of you that are very die-hard individuals and you keep working and working and working. So just to let you know, stay out of Aeries on the 25th. If you happen to be one of those people,
Just kidding.
stay out of Aeries on the 25th because we are going to be doing rollover. And I will send out an email when rollover is done, that if you are off, you'll have that email when you come back. If you happen to still be hanging around, then you'll know it's safe to get back in. And I did mention the 3 rollover videos here under the videos tab. And, as you see these, I've done one for discipline entry. I've done one for the mass schedule changes for several teachers, and I use Turtle Bay as an example. And a simple class change. So as you're doing things, if there's, and especially for newbies, if there's something that you see that you would like to have it as a video, shoot me an email and I will do my best to try and do one. If it's not one that I can actually upload to here, then it may end up being a link in my Google Drive. Or I may put it in the Office Manager Google Drive and put the link here so that you'll still be able to get to it, but it won't actually be uploaded to the Live Binder. Because the last one I did for CalPads, I had to fix one of them and it got too big, it wouldn't upload, so I had to do a link.
Denise, are we gonna touch promotions at all?
We can touch on that right now if you'd like. There are times that you may have a student that the teacher, parent, and admin have met and have decided that a student's going to get promoted or skip a grade. So like maybe it's a TK student and they really don't need to do a second year of kindergarten. They're going to go to first grade.
I do.
Right?
Well,
If you want to do a sample.
currently we
Got
don't,
it today.
currently the only place that we would have to mark a promotion is in the RAL log.
And the next grade.
Yeah,
Change that.
and then making sure that the next grade is the right, where'd my mouse go? There it is. Because there's nothing, they've got the retention, but it's not a retention. So we wouldn't mark them under retentions, but we would mark in the RAL log, we would make an entry. So you've got somebody,
Hanger, Hanger. She's TK.
Brooklyn.
Go to first.
So here you would just be making an RAL entry. And again, I would use,
The agreement was signed today, you want us to use that date?
okay, yes, use the date, that's where I was going. Use the date that your letter is signed and your entry. Met with, let's see, promotion. First grade for 1819. Parent, teacher, and admin met, letter signed. So that's basically,
Go ahead and save that.
yeah, as soon as my mouse gets back here. Come on.
And it's done.
Come on.
We'll have to scan the letter in like other, I think you have other category in student docs, right?
Actually, it would be the personnel documents, type report,
Right in there.
promotion. So towards the back of your packet, I have revamped, because I could not find originals of the retention letter or the promotion letter. I have received samples from other sites. So all the way in the back of the packet, there is 3 sheets stapled together.
These are great, Denise. These really are.
And one of them is letter of retention. And if you want these to be fillable in Adobe, I can make them that way. To where if you've been told by your administrator that so-and-so is going to get retained, then you can pull it up in Adobe Reader, check your school, put in the grade, put in the student's name, and then all it would need would be the signatures. So I can make it fillable if you would like. And same way with the promotion letter. So I have the board policy on there, which I don't believe the samples that I had board policy. Cindy asked that it would reflect board policy. And on these, I did include Shasta, Igo, Monarch, and Stellar. Because it gives a more uniform look across the partnership. And on the promotion and retention letter, I do have new Millennium Partnership on there, so that shows that it's reflecting everybody. So if you've already done a promotion letter for Miss Brooklyn, what you've got is gonna be okay. But if you wanna start using the new ones, that'll work. And then I also made the kindergarten continuance letter look nicer than that form from CDE, with also our schools down at the bottom, so that we know you can check which school it is. That one currently is as a fillable. So I have not put them into the district share folder yet, but they will go there.
And again, if we got one signed last week, that's okay.
Yeah, if you've already gotten one signed, don't worry about it, but this is kind of like from this point forward. So these will be in the district form share, the district share forms, whatever that one is. I thought of putting them, and I think I currently have these for you to look at in the team drive for office managers, but I think at some point they're planning on making a district shared team drive type thing, and everything's gonna get moved over there. So I'm gonna put them in the district share and student forms. Does that sound like the right place? So again, if you have a promotion, there is a promotion letter, make the RAL entry, make sure that next grade reflects the correct,
I was gonna say, can you change that so I'm not sitting here and it's bugging me?
her next grade.
Yeah.
So she's going first grade, right? Yes. So when you do your mass changes,
Yeah, I'll have to make sure she doesn't get changed.
or you may have to go and change her back, because when you do your mass changes, it might wipe out what we just did. Or just keep her.
I just run a query to compare the two and see if anybody's on each list. So she'll probably show up.
Okay. Okay, so I did print out the status tags page that is in the data entry guide on Life Finders. And again, it is in here. So if you lose this page, where to find it is on the agenda. And a real quick thing, I have in your Office Manager guide, drive. Come on. I have started putting, I have a folder for closing meetings, kickoff meetings, mid-year meetings, and some miscellaneous handouts. So this is a closing meeting. If I go there, the different agendas from each year are in there. So today's meeting is in here. So if you forget, where did she say to find that? So status tags, data entry guide, procedures, status tags. So the agenda's in here. If I get to doing notes on today, kind of a recap, if I can remember to do them, I have a folder for that. So here's some past meetings where we've had some recaps. So like I said, I've added that to your team drive to help. So here's the 14, 15, I just changed it. So I think this is in miscellaneous handouts. Those 3 forms that we just looked at. Yeah, so the kindergarten continuance, the promotion letter, the retention letter. So those are in here. One of these is, this is the fillable form. Although from the team drive, I don't know if it's going to be fillable. I may not have reader on this computer because it's not wanting to do anything. But when you get it from the share drive, it'll be fillable. So, and then I also put, thinking, the guide for homeless, what the different codes mean, what their description is. So these are from a couple of other meetings ago that we had. So I decided that might be a good thing to add for you guys. So that stuff is there now. So the status tags goes over, pre-enroll, what it is, the G graduated for Stellar, and the different things that you're going to need to do. So the leave date is so if they have an early graduation, so it goes over the different things. And I did kind of do a snippet and a rough draw of that student data 2 screen so that you know these 2 fields are end of year. These 2 fields are completion status. Because when you're looking at that screen, they don't really give you any type of color definition to know that these 2 belong together and these 2 belong together. I've asked for some type of visual, like a harder, darker line, because there is a little light line, but it's between each of the fields. So it's not letting you know that these two belong together, these two belong together, these three belong together. So that's why there's the little snippet. So graduated, that is basically a stellar code for the high schoolers. Everybody uses inactive, although just a reminder that you do not inactivate anybody who has completed the school year. Leave them active, even if they are leaving for next year. They stay active in the current year. That way, if you or I need to go into previous year and run an enrollment report, everybody will show up. Because if I run the report and I include inactive students, it's going to include all the inactive students, not just those that were inactivated the last day of school. I learned this lesson the hard way. When I was previous district, I had inactivated all my 8th graders at the end of the school year. I needed to do something after rollover, and I ran a report. I'm like, where'd all my 8th graders go? It's saying we have no 8th graders. What happened? And then it dawned on me, I had inactivated everybody. So do not inactivate anybody who completes the school year. Just throwing that out there. That's not on here. I'm just throwing that out there. Also on the inactives, if you're at CDS or if you are one of the regular schools, if they're going to CDS, the exit reason is the 165, I believe. The 167 is like if they go to juvenile hall, right? So either 165 or 167, you have to have that next school field populated. Otherwise, we don't really need it because we're doing the RAL entry, and the RAL entry gives a whole lot more information. So before rollover, again, don't change their status tag. Do not inactivate anybody who finishes the year. But they will have their end of year status information done. So we've kind of covered this again before. Then after rollover, we have 2 different codes. One's a summer withdrawal and one's a no-show. So the summer withdrawal is after rollover and before school starts. And that requires the summer withdrawal information on that student data 2 screen to be filled out. If by chance you pull a student in from 900 that may have been summer withdrawn earlier, double check this student data 2 field screen and remove that summer withdrawal information because it has a tendency to kick errors for CalPADs. But again, if it's after rollover and before school starts and you have a student, where the parent comes in or you get a CUM request and you weren't expecting them to leave, you'll need to do the summer withdrawal information. Then the first day of school, so it's after rollover, after school has started, so basically the first day of school is when we use the no-show. And again, it's the summer withdrawal information that you're filling out, but you're using the 470 code because they're a no-show. Unless you happen, yes, because they're a no-show. Because we are going ahead and initializing attendance so that teachers can take attendance the first day of school. They are to mark absent anybody who is not here, and we'll go over this again at the kickoff meeting. But this is to kind of front load you a little bit. They will mark absent in Aeries. You're going to run your students absent today. Make contact with them, find out what's going on. They're no-showed for that first day of school, even if they're going to come back the next day, because we want their enrollment start date to be the day they actually physically show up. So there should be no absences other than exclusions for immunizations on the first day of school. Anybody who is excluded for immunizations, we want those to show. But that's also how we're doing our warm body counts now. Instead of having the sites fill out these paper forms, we're tagging the no-shows, and I'm running reports morning, afternoon, comparing the numbers and letting them know who we've got for the board and everything. So then again, like I said, students who return, double check the student data 2 screen and remove the summer withdrawal information. So that's status tags in a nutshell. Again, it's always there for you to get to. You can print it as you need it or refer back to it. Also on the agenda, I have marked, so the EOY date, anybody not returning, the date is the last day of school, so 6/6/18. Your summer withdrawal date after rollover before school starts, this date here will be the last day of school, 6/6/18. Those that you no-show, the leave date is going to be the first Monday in August, which is 8/6/18. That way it shows it outside of our enrollment and makes it obvious that it was a no-show. So those are dates to remember for your status tags.
8/6.
Yes, for the no-shows, 8/6. So how are we doing here? 9:30. Okay, so moving on. You know those folders that hold student information? Cumulatives, CUMs, student records. At the end of the year, you get to do something with them. Come on. And it's not sending them to me. I have printed this out for you. Again, you can find it here in the data guide. And this is basically getting your 5th grade CUMs boxed up to send to Sequoia. And for Turtle Bay, Sequoia, Juniper, Shasta and I believe your 8th graders, wherever your 8th graders go. I think yours go to Shasta. Do yours go to Shasta and I want to say Deer Valley, but it's West Valley. Deer Valley's Antioch, where my son went to high school. But you're going to be boxing up your 5th grade CUMs to send to Sequoia. So here's the guidelines for sending them to Sequoia. Alphabetical order, where to put the health folder, running lists. If you get a request before rollover and before you've boxed up your CUMs, or even if you have your CUMs boxed up but they haven't left for Sequoia yet, please fulfill that CUM request. And, make a copy of the request. You're going to be scanning it and putting it into Aeries, and definitely next year we want to start from the beginning of the year doing that. But if you say make a copy and write on there already sent and the date that you sent it, so that Amy knows that that's why there's a CUM missing, that will help her out quite a bit. And then for those going to Shasta High, the directions for how to do it and who to contact for the confidentials, and then contact and let Daniel know that you've got boxes that need to go away and where they need to go. Also, if you have already sent your CUMs over to Sequoia and you get a CUM request, make sure you forward that on so that the registrar at Sequoia can fulfill that request. Any questions on that? Or anything that's changing, or well, I'm assuming everything's kind of staying the same.
Do you need us to do anything special?
No, just great. The list with the CUM box was really helpful. I use it a lot, so thank you.
Okay, attendance. I'm just kind of touching on some things. because the end of the school year, the majority of you, your office clerk, their last day is the last day of school, unless they have made arrangements to work an extra day, whether it was a swap by taking a day off and they're working an extra day or they're getting paid. That's gonna mean that some things may fall to you to get to me. One of the important things is the weekly attendance verification sheets that the teachers sign to verify that that is the attendance they took. The office clerks have been in the habit of running those the Monday following the week. These need to be run on the last day of school, and they need to be signed before the teachers leave. So when we go over the samples of teacher checkouts that I've received, we may want to make sure that that gets added to the teacher checkout, that they cannot check out until those are signed. Last year there was one or two sites that, kind of, ran it on that Monday after school, and there's nobody here to sign them. So it was like, well, the teachers are at this training or that training, so send out an email to all of our teachers and let them know, hey, come by the school and sign your sheets. So to avoid that, make sure that they're run that last day of school. Also, the month 11 report and summary, I'm going to need that by June 8th. If your office clerk can get it finished up by the last day of school, then that takes it off of your plate. But in case they aren't able to, it's going to be you guys that I'm contacting. Also, the audit box is more virtual now. So anything that would have gone in the paper hard copy audit box, which you guys are currently keeping in case the auditors need to see a hard copy. Just make sure that all of the scanning is done. And if your office clerk has had issues keeping that up, then it's probably going to fall to you guys to make sure everything is in there. Possibly next year, I don't know if it might be a good idea to get a scanned stamp, because I have a scan to Aeries and I have a scan to DocStar stamp that I use. I don't always put the date and initial, but if I've stamped it, at least I know that I've scanned what I needed to scan. So that might be something for you guys to think of, to put on your summer purchase list, maybe a scanned, so that if it's ends up to you to double check things, you'll be able to see, oh, that's been scanned, that's been scanned, that's been scanned, oh, that's not stamped, I need to scan it. That might help. Because also it's the monthly attendance packet, so anything that they normally would be handing to the auditors in a box is what needs to be scanned. The independent study contracts with work samples, that's not necessarily every piece of work that the student did. It's samples of the work. So if they were given math and ELA and history, so they had 5 things for ELA, just pick 2. If they had 5 things for math, pick 2. Just something to show of, reasonable sample of what they did, goes behind the contract, scan it together.
What do we do with what's left over? Are we keeping that?
Well, once it's scanned, the work could actually go back to the student. But, so scanning in the sample, it releases the work to be able to get back to the student. The homeschool portion, so you have some kids on homeschool, they should actually have a folder with their master agreement in it. That currently is not getting scanned in, because I don't think Reading's is getting scanned in. Shasta's is, I don't think, the homeschool is getting scanned in.
I'm scanning all the homeschool work, yeah.
So, but that's because you have such a large population.
Right.
And percentage, the auditors are really looking at yours. Reading's doesn't get looked at as heavily, so still pulling the actual folders if it's needed, it works. And same way with IGO, percentage is so low, I don't think the auditors have ever looked
So
at
I
it.
don't have to do homeschool. I have a huge step waiting for me.
As long as it's in the student folder and the work and assignment sheet is together, for the homeschool kids, keep the work. Independent study kids that are the 5-day contract, up to 20-day contract, those are the ones that you can scan a sample. But for the homeschool kids, it's different.
So I do not have to scan.
Because you only have like 2, 3. Let's hold off and see what happens this year. And if the auditors say anything, then, you know, we can, or I can quickly scan it in and get it done for them. But also SARB letters should get scanned in as well. And another reminder, copy of retention letters to me. And talking of the scanning, in the attendance tab, all of this that's hot pink is what was in their binder. So the monthly attendance checklist that we talked about at the mid-year meeting, it is in here. The office clerks should have the live binder link as well, so if they need it, they can print it off. Definitely, I know I brought it in kind of mid-year, or brought it back mid-year. We were using it before I started here, and it kind of got phased out a little bit, but I'm seeing the need that it needs to come back. So, you know, going over it with your office clerks, making sure that it is getting completed each month. Scan it with the summary so that I can see that it's been done as well, that it's been signed by the admin. But down here is their year-end audit box, and everything that's highlighted is what should be scanned. So retention letters, scan it into DocStar, and I think there's other places like this independent study. I don't remember if I talked about scanning, but so I do need to put it in here, but like I said, I do have the year-end audit box that talks about scanning. But I'm thinking I may update this a little bit and include more scanning information. But scan, 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 scan. Robert keeps pushing. Less paper, scan. Makes it easier for the auditors, because I just got a little bit of a lesson on how to retrieve in DocStar, and I'm like, because when I retrieved it, a student, I'm like, well, why is it pulling up all of these different reports? Well, it's each time that student's name shows up in the report. I'm like, oh, so that's how they're doing it. Okay, so if they're looking for Billy Brown, they'll type in Billy Brown and it brings up results. So it's every time Billy Brown's name has been mentioned, then they can follow Billy Brown's trail from month 1 through month 11. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. So that's why the student's name is on a lot of the stuff that you're having to scan, because then anything related to Billy Brown, parent note, whatever, will show up. Excuse me. So moving on. So getting ready for 18-19. So we've gone away for the summer. Or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or we've gone to visit grandkids, we've gone to Hawaii, we've gone to the Bahamas, we've gone to San Diego, we've gone on a cruise, we've gone nowhere and worked in our yards, or just relaxed and read, or changed locations, or bought and sold a house. You know, we just, whatever we've done over the summer, we are coming back. So, but we are also still getting ready for the 18-19 now, before we left. So one of them that we need to make sure, when you're pre-enrolling your TK students, remember, for them to start in August, they need to be 5 by December 1st. So that means that their birth date needs to be before December 1st, 2013. So when they're filling out their enrollment forms, if their birth date is 2014, they cannot start. They are 4 years old. They cannot start in August. We don't want any more 4-year-olds sneaking in on us. We do have a code, TK, no ADA, but we really want to save those for times when Rob has said, yes, go ahead and enroll the 4-year-old. Because state's not paying us for them. So basically the teacher is spending energy with that student and not getting reimbursed for it. So again, for a TK student to start in August, to be 5 by December 1st, 2018, their birth date has to be before or on December 1st, 2013. For a kindergartner, starting in August, they need to be 5 by November 1st. So their birthday would need to be by November 1st, 2013. Any birth dates after December 1st, 2013 need to wait until they turn 5, and then that's also as room allows. If your TK program is full at your site and you have no room in any of the kindergarten classes to put TK students, they may have to try another site or have to wait until the next school year. So after December 1st is kind of up to the site. But we do want you to take them if you have the room. At least, and I saw one paper, one of our old flyers that said something about between December and March. But we all know that we have some that try and come in April and May. So that's kind of a discussion with the site administrator, with the parent. Is it really going to be beneficial for your student to do 2 months of TK? Or would it be better for them to wait until next school year? So that's kind of a judgment for the site administrators. So again, no students under 5. Please, 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 please.
So Denise, now kindergarten can start up to November 1st instead of September 1st? I thought TK, or they had to be 5 by September 1st to be.
That's within that Shasta booklet they hand out.
September 1.
Yeah.
That they would be a TK.
And then it's December
before.
5th.
September 2nd to December 1st.
I will have to double check on that because the paperwork that I looked at was one of the flyers that had been sent out for the TK program. And it said for kinder, they needed to be 5 by November 1st to start in August, but I will.
Do you want me to grab one of mine?
Well, this is a flyer that was sent out
Well, right.
several years ago.
Oh, I was gonna say, we just got the new ones for our kindergarten roundup next weekend.
Where did
Next
you get
week.
those from?
The SCOE, they're the kindergarten, they're the hard pamphlets that come out with all the information. It's got the dates in it.
Okay, because what I was looking at was something that we sent home.
Oh, so the district might have something that supersedes that.
I don't know, but we'll double check it later and I'll email out what I find. So later, I may want to see that. So I'm double checking.
Here's our webpage, the Reading webpage right there.
Transitional kindergarten is a bridge between preschool and kindergarten for children turning 5 years old between September 1st and December 2nd. It gives young learners a head start and provides them with the opportunity to learn and grow.
So kinder would be by September 1st.
Okay, so who attends transitional kindergarten? The child entering will be 5 by September 1st, goes into kindergarten. If they're 5 by December 2nd, they go into TK. Okay, so I guess they've updated that because that, like I said, what I looked at was for like 14, 15.
Because what we we've been doing what you're doing. They have to be 5 by September 1st to be kinder.
Right.
If they're September 2nd, but by December 1st, then they're TK.
Okay. So, and that is on our website, so reiteration for the reporting. The TK cutoff date to start in August is December 1st. Kindergarten cutoff for starting in August is September 1st. So if their birth date is November 1st, they are a TK student. But if they're before September 1st or by September 1st, they're kindergarten. So September 1st for kindergarten, not November 1st. So their birth date would need to be 9/1/13 instead of that 12/1/13. Okay, just thank you for reminding that. Okay, SM, DM, and dates. So for new office managers, SM stands for school mobility, and DM stands for district mobility. So for the project techs, every once in a while, need to run information based on the SM and the DM fields. And basically what that is right here on the demographic screen. So this particular student, this is Brooklyn that we're still looking at, she entered Manzanita as a TK student. She entered the district as a TK student. So if she stays in the Reading School District, the district mobility will show that she has been in the district since she was a TK student. So every once in a while, like I said, the project techs need to run a report to find out who's been at their school since kindergarten or since a TK. They'll query that SM field. So if you're pulling a student in from 900, you need to update the SM and DM because they've left the district, so those need to reset. Excuse me, so that's something to be aware of as you're pre-enrolling.
So it doesn't do it automatically, like, it doesn't recognize that it's coming in, so it starts it over.
No, I think when you do the search to pull in a student, it may ask to update it. It's been a while since I pulled the kid in.
Well, if you're changing the grade at the top,
Yeah.
then it'll ask you if you want to update it to the current.
Okay.
All
So-
depends on changing the grade. That's the trigger at the top.
I see that a lot for my high school kids that are returning, that like, they may have gone to Turtle Bay or something elementary, but then they started at Shasta, and then now they're at Stellar. It'll show that to where their district mobility will be different.
If a child stops at, like, say, Cypress today, and I pull them in tomorrow, I wouldn't change the grade, but I'd have to go down and change the school enter date.
Right, because it doesn't
And
trigger it.
then the school mobility, district mobility would be the same because it's the same grade. Yeah. So that wouldn't trigger it or ask for a change.
But, so, yeah, so if it shows up on the form as you're doing the ad and you search for them and you're clicking the student and bring it in, so just make sure that you're saying, yes, you want to change that if it is truly a different SM and DM. Otherwise, if you forget to do it, then make sure that you change it on the demographic screen. I've got a update SM and school enter date only if you're pulling from another RSD school. So if it happens to be the same grade level, so within the same school year, your SM may be the same, but the school enter date is not going to be the same because this is the school enter date for Manzanita. It's not the school enter date for Cypress. So if Brooklyn were to transfer to Cypress, it would be the school enter date for Cypress. So if she switched and went to Cypress October of 2017, then you'd need to change this date to October because that's when she started at Cypress. The date that's in there when you pull them in, either from 900 or from another school within our district, that's for that particular school. So make sure that you're updating that for your school. And also just kind of a reminder, the district enter date, if they left the district for 30 days or longer, that date gets changed when they come back. So if they were with you in August, they left October, November, they came back in December, you would change the district enter date to that date in December because they weren't continuously with us through the whole time. So that's just kind of a reminder for my new office managers, that's new information, because you probably have not heard that. So same way with IGO and Shasta, if the student leaves and is gone for 30 days or more, and then comes back to you, you want to change that and restart their count, basically, from the day they come back.
So look, I've had that, we had him from first grade, left, and then came back from fourth grade.
Yes.
I don't know if that updated.
Yeah, so that's something definitely to keep an eye on. And same way, that would even be the school enter date as well. So if they were started with August with you and left October, November, and came back in December, so both dates would change because they left and came back. And you both only have the one site, so, oh, I gotta restart your date.
Each kid, you gotta look at. I think you could look up, I think Antonio might have like what you're saying. He's got his twin sister too, yeah, him. He might, I'm trying to remember what day he started. Okay, see, district mobility's third. They transferred from another site and came to me on November 2017, but they've been with the district continuously since, what, November 2015.
Yeah.
That's odd, it's the
So-
same date 2 years later.
That's why I
Yeah.
didn't touch the district, because he came from another site straight to me, didn't leave for 30 days or anything,
Yeah, so on
because he
him,
moved.
so he started November 13th, 2015 with Juniper, and then switched 2017 to Manzanita.
So I only touched the school mobility and the school enter date. I didn't touch district.
Yeah, because he didn't leave the district.
Yeah.
That's a very good example. Thank you for knowing your kids. Okay, another thing when we are enrolling our new students is the U.S. school entry date. This is found on the language assessment screen. And I'm in my favorites, so I'll switch back over here. So the language assessment screen is under student data, programs, language assessment. When I'm looking students up in CalPads for their language fluency, because nobody can put language fluency in, I'm looking up all of those blank language fluencies in CalPads. If I happen to find an EL student in CalPads and the parent puts something different with us, we always go off the original home language survey. So I will pull in and change them to EL, and I will go in and I will put their school entry date based on what's in CalPads. But if this happens to be a new enrollee to our district, and let's just go ahead and use a kindergartner, and they were born outside of the US, so they filled out their enrollment form that they were born in China or Mexico or England or Russia.
Matthew Macomb,
Make them,
I think he was born in the area.
M-A-K?
M-A-K-E. There he is. I think he was.
Okay, so
Was he?
even though they may be English only, because they're born outside of the US, we need to have their first US school. If it's a kindergartner coming to you and you are their first school, it's gonna be the first day of school. If, say, they are a second grader and they're coming from another school, you may and if they're coming from, say, out of state, you may have to wait until the CUM arrives, or you may need to fax that school and ask when was their first US school day, when did they first enroll in US schools, and you'll put that information in there. It's used for different things. The one thing that pops to mind immediately is, especially for EL students, if they've been in the US less than 12 months, they do not have to take the ELA portion of the CASP. But if it's not an EL student, they have to take it. So that field needs to be remembered when you have a student born outside the US. And again, I'm looking up language fluency, so I will pull what's in CalPads. But if they are coming from out of state and they did put something other than English on their home language survey, Mark would highly appreciate it if these fields were filled out here, and also if you can put the US school entry date. He has a team drive for EL students, so it's possible EL students, and I believe all of you guys are on that. And he has folders for each school site for you to be able to scan and upload the enrollment form, and then just shoot him an email saying, hey, I put a new enrollment form in my folder, so that he can be able to look at it and determine whether or not he needs to do any testing on the student. Whatever information I find in CalPads, I will populate in here. So I may override somebody who has put English for the home language for a student with what I find in CalPads. And then I email Mark and I let him know, hey, so-and-so at Turtle Bay, they're Spanish and they are EL, here's their status date, or their RFEP, here's their RFEP date. I'll put it in for him, but he does some follow-up with it. So just remember the US school enter date. And also, as you are enrolling students, this can never be said enough, I don't think. Make sure you're getting some type of birth verification, whether it's a birth certificate, a passport, a hospital certificate. We've got in the live binder, excuse me, the different things for getting birth affidavits. We have a fax request for Shasta to our county recorder's office that you can fill in and fax off to our county recorder if the parent cannot come up with anything, but the student was born in Shasta County. This can be an affidavit that we can use.
We just did that last month and got two like that
They
for new
respond
students.
Very
They did, for
Yeah.
new students that didn't have them, and we tried and tried and tried and tried to get it.
Yeah, so they've been great. We also have a blank one. So if they're from a different county, there's a blank one to fill out. There's also something for the parent, how to obtain a certified copy of the birth certificate. So if they would like to get a copy, they can. This gives them the directions how to do it. There's also this vitalcheck.com has the different states and the different counties that gives you the fax number. So that's why the blank one. So if you go here and you go to birth certificates, I think they changed their website up a little bit. Okay, that's a little bit different. Let's go back to home. So I'm not wanting to place an order. Okay, they changed their website up. Because there was a link on how to get to the list. So they've changed that up, so I may have to take a look at that and update. Up, come on. Because I think I've got directions on how to do that down here. I will have to take a look and see how they changed it, but this was a place that had the different states that you could click on, and it had links to the different county offices so that you could use a blank request. There's also absolute last resort is getting a parent birth affidavit. So if Shasta's doesn't work out, the blank one doesn't work out, then we can, as an absolute last resort, get the parent to basically swear that their student was born on this day. So we can use a parent birth affidavit. But again, absolute last resort. And I think I've got that as an absolute last resort. So there's the protocol for the birth verification. So again, as you're enrolling students, the parent may put Susie Smith on the enrollment form, but we want Susan Smith if that's what's on the birth certificate. They may not put the middle name, but if the birth certificate has the middle name, we want it exactly how it is. That's their legal name. If the student prefers to be called by Susie, then there's always on the demographic screen the alias field, which can now be, so if the first name says Susan, you can put the alias as Susie. That way it'll show up in parentheses on the class list.
Oh, no, Sarah Mason was Raphael. With the wrap, open her, Hernandez on the demographic screen. It usually shows parentheses with wrap on
I think that's under profile.
it, or on profile.
I was gonna
say,
say,
I
you
just
just
saw
alias
Well,
box.
I think it's under profile.
I didn't even know we
But it has to
by
be
that.
here under alias for it to show up.
Was there the other Raphael maybe? I just saw it yesterday and it said Raph. I'm like, oh, I guess the kid likes to be called that. There he
There.
is.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I guess I entered that
So,
and didn't remember, and I just saw him yesterday.
So then
that
up here,
Raph.
it is putting it in parentheses, so if the first name is Susan or Susanna, and they really prefer to be called Susie, that's now what the alias is for. And then we did kind of go over back when things really kind of hit the wall. We have a new legal name field. So now we have the ability, if we have a parent, so like if mom really wanted him to go by Whitney, you could put Whitney here, but the legal name field would be what is on the birth certificate.
Oh, we have that now? Or we're using that now?
Yes, and I,
When you change, it comes up on the bottom.
I have one I need to talk to you about too, because the legal name isn't what they want to go by.
yeah, so if, say on this student, his legal name here is Petrie, but mom wants him to use her last name, then legal name, first, middle, first, last, first, middle would need to go in, and his gender. So if these two are the same, they still need to be filled in. So you'd put Petrie, Raphael, Adrian, male. And then you could change this to Whitney. So Raphael Whitney, but he likes to go by Raph. So the staff will call him Whitney. The teachers don't see the legal name field, So on the CUM, you'll have kind of both the legal name and then in parentheses what they're going by.
Okay.
So then,
So CalPADS for you, it would still
It'll
pull up
be-
the legal.
yeah,
So if we went in and changed one, like that's already in there, it's not going to affect your CalPADS.
as long as you move the information into the legal name.
Got it. Got it.
What about
She
legal,
wants to be moved.
legal gender?
That's,
Because I have one starting next year that,
I think we also have another one here in Reading. I don't remember off the top of my head who it is. But yes, that's why there is a legal gender, because now they're allowing kids to identify however they want.
right,
So if the birth certificate, your legal documentation says that they are male, but they say, no, I'm female, then in that first line, you can put female here, but their legal gender is male. We have something coming up, and I'm not sure if it's going to be this school year or next school year. And I'm not sure if it's going to be that parents can make this choice at birth so that it's on the birth certificate, or if it's actually a choice that students can make once they become
Yeah.
old enough to make some type of decision. But there is a third choice coming up called non-binary. Like I said, I haven't seen if that's going to be something that a parent can have put on the birth certificate, or if it's something that the student later on can say.
I believe it's going to be both.
So whatever's on the birth certificate is gonna go in the legal. So if the birth certificate says non-binary, then you're gonna be putting non-binary. CalPADS is not ready to accept that yet, and that's where I'm trying to remember which year they told me. But it's coming, so just be aware, you may eventually see some non-binary.
And Denise, when we had this last year, when you put that gender difference in with legal and preferred, then you asked me to make sure that we put the whole name field
Yes.
correct in. So
Yes.
not just the gender, but you have for that,
Yes.
put the whole name.
Yes. Yeah, so just like how this is showing, that legal name field, it was last name, first name, middle name, and the legal gender.
And that all shows up when you hit just change.
Well, no, I had to do change, and then I had to do show hide legal name.
Okay.
Because just clicking change, it doesn't show up.
Right, okay.
So then you have to show the legal name fields. And like I said, the teachers don't see the legal name, they just see the,
What they want to go by.
yeah.
And then there is when they're taking technically who's written into this with one, they have to use their.
Yeah, they have to use what's on the ticket.
For.
So if they have an issue with what's on the ticket, tell them, well, that's what's on your birth certificate. We have to use that name. So he can't use Rafe to log in, he has to use Raphael. So if it happens to be a gender change and her first name is Susan, but she's going by Sam and she's saying she's male, Susan is what she's gonna have to put in because that's her legal name. So that's where, pull them aside, have a little conversation, whether it's the teacher having it or the project tech, or in your case, you are everybody.
That's teacher.
Yeah, having the conversation, well, this is what we have to do because this is what is your legal name.
Denise, do you happen to know if we do that, have to have, or we have a different legal name or alias for the student? Does the cafeteria get what information we put in Aeries?
They don't get the legal, they get the,
What we put in Aeries?
Yeah.
Okay.
and again, also as you get new kids in and you get CUM records in, whether it's you or somebody at your site, it might be your office clerk, it might be your health clerk, however you divvied up your work, make sure that they're looking in that CUM for a birth verification and that you're double checking what comes in with what you have in Aeries. Because I know that there might be a delay up to 30 days before you get that information. So just make sure when it comes in that it gets checked. and that it gets updated in Aeries. Reminder, our next scheduling workshop is June 12th. And the request from Cindy is for class lists to be really close. They don't have to be 100% ready, but the teachers, Cindy wants the teachers to be able to have them on their first staff workday, which is August 9th. So that's why we're having the scheduling workshop, so we can kind of work together. And Pam's helping, Amy's helping, I'm helping, kind of going through step by step. And then I think on the 12th, we may be able to get more into the actual getting things scheduled. So I'll send out a reminder when we get closer to that. And again, if we don't get it done on the 12th, if you're at least comfortable with continuing to work on it after the workshop, great. You know, your target date is August 9th. If after rollover and we're back and you've completely forgotten what you were doing, we can set up another date and everybody come in together, or I can come to you and we can try and work things out.
What time is that at, on the 12th?
I want to say 9 o'clock, but let's. So June 12th. Let's take off Cindy. 9 to 12. I think we were freezing Nicole out. Okay, so next up, student emergency card. I did a printout of the instructions on how to print the student emergency card. Again, these instructions are in the live binder. These emergency cards are basically for your current returning students. Although if you are pre-enrolling students right now and you run these before school, it will be a way for the parents to double check and update anything that may have changed since they enrolled. Okay, so your student emergency cards. There it is. So the same thing that I printed out for you is right here. There it is. And again, you can print it if you need it. So my suggestion is make sure you're running these before school starts. And you know, the sites that are not going to the online data confirmation, are you giving them out in the first aid packet, welcome back night?
Our kinders get them the day before school and come meet the teacher. The other kids get them the first day of school in their purple folders.
Okay.
Nancy.
So then, to kind of make sure that you're getting them back, what I have done in the past is a class list, check off, make the teacher check off and give me the class list back, and then I'll take what she gave me, give her her class list back so that anybody who's missing, the teacher can follow up with and make sure that they're getting them back. That takes some tracking off of you, but because if you break it up that way, then it kind of spreads the workload a little bit and, you know, getting those back. So that's, how do you get them? Same way. So that's, you know, for newbies, that might be a good suggestion for how you get your emergency cards back. And then when I was in an office, when I got those back, for me, it was no change, change, no change, no change, no change, change, change. This is the pile I worked with. This pile could go into the binder or into the emergency card thing, wherever it went. So we used to do the new enrollment form every single year, new emergency information every single year. So it was, here's my stack, take the first one. Same, oh, that's different, the same. So that took several months to get everything updated. When we went to the emergency cards, it was a lot easier. And I'm thinking it's been that way since we moved it to it here.
For 3 years, we've done it the new way, and I love it.
It is a lot less data entry. Now, when those of us that are trying the new system online, are we still gonna need to print their gold cards to get signatures from parents, or?
Well, okay, so Turtle Bay, Sequoia, Bonneview, and Stellar. This is Turtle Bay's second year doing the online data confirmation. The other sites, this is going to be their first year. So I've met with Turtle Bay. We don't really need to change anything in the setup other than maybe emails, who's getting what emails. Stellar, Tori and I met. Sequoia, I met with Sarah and Amy. So we've got who's getting emails, so I'll be meeting with Cheryl at Bonneview to make sure that we've got things set up. But basically, and I've made a new section here in the data entry guide, online parent data confirmation. I've kind of taken all of the information from the different documents that Aeries has and tried to condense it down. So this is your homework. You absolutely more than welcome to print this out. But basically, when we go through the setup, we will be putting in dates that lock the parents out of their portal until they do the confirmation. They will get this screen, this banner on their screen with a click here in order to go. During the lockout period, they cannot skip any steps. They have to go through the whole thing in order to get it completed. Once that lockout window is done, I can go in and put a check mark to allow them to skip steps, so that if we leave the window open for the year for them to be able to make changes, they can go in and add a contact, or if their phone number changes or their address changes, they can go in and make those changes. When they make an address change, it does not change right away. It ends up emailing whoever is in the data change email fields. And they get, let me pull up my email here. So like Jessica has been getting emails, and I'm copied on them because I put my email in there too. So I can email her and say, okay, I took care of this, or I took care of that, or double check this, or make sure you're doing this. Come on. So the sites that are going to be starting that this year will get the same. Same type of emails from me. So if I go, so you guys get to see what my email looks like. Okay, so I have a folder set up, Aeries data confirmation, and then I put folders down below so that as I see one that says student address change, I'm putting it into this address folder. So the email will tell you who it's for. This is telling me what school it's for, the student ID, the perm ID. The email will tell you what parent account is making the change, and it has the from and the to. No, this is going from Dora to Dara.
Oh.
So this is a change request.
That or is an address fix?
For us, it would be an address fix, but how it comes across, because we have our data entry protocols, they are not making any changes. It comes through as a change request. So when you get the email, you need to open it, look at it, and this is where you do a double check on it. If it's in our district, then just go ahead, update, whether it's an address change or fixing bad data. This would be fixing bad data, I would say.
See, I was worried that the parent was actually changing it, and I'm like, well, then they're gonna put street instead of ST. I thought they were physically able to
Right.
go in and make changes. I was like, no.
There are certain pieces that it does actually do the change,
Okay,
like adding a contact. It will add the contact right then and there. And yes, their addresses will be not following our protocols. Again, you would open the email, take a look at how they entered it. If they didn't enter it,
it could change.
then you can change it. So on this particular one, you see, okay, we must not have been able to read the parent's writing and we put an O instead of an A. So you're gonna open up Aeries, you're gonna go to the student, you're gonna go click, change of address, you're gonna go fixing bad data, and you're gonna change it from Dora to Dara. If it happens to be one, and that was for residents, this one's for a mailing address, so it's both the same, but for the parent, it shows up two different fields. But if it turns out that it's somebody, this looks like it's still possibly within the district, but this is where you might want to do a quick look of the address on the street list to see if they are still in our district or if they left our district. If they left our district, then follow up with sending them an inter-district form. So the addresses, it does not change. If they do contact, I have it to where they cannot delete a contact, and I have it to where they cannot change the contact name. And in the setup, behind the scenes, the wording that we have is letting them know, do not try to delete contacts. If a contact needs to be removed, call the school, because there may be a reason we need to keep that person. And it was kind of trial and error with Turtle Bay's data. As I was getting these emails, I saw one where it went from something. So here it's changing from to, well, there was one where it was changing from somebody to blank, from to blank. So they were basically trying to delete the person. So I went and looked them up, and they were actually red flagged as a do not contact. So I added that verbiage in there, if you see the comment, do not contact, please leave the person there because we need them. So I ended up emailing the person who made the change and kind of explained to them, I'm putting this contact back in because they are red flags so that we know who not to release your student to. But, there is no other information other than their name, but we need to be able to know who can't pick up this child. So, and he was understanding and let me put it back in. Demographic information, you'll get emails regarding different demographic things. This one, they said no changes. So they just had to basically click confirm, everything is fine. You still get an email. So here they're changing the phone number. I believe the phone numbers, it's not a change request, it is a change. So the phone number changed. Yes, but you get the email to show you that it did change. So that it gives you a heads up in case you need to follow up on it. Medical, there is a separate slot in the setup of who's to get the medical information emails. I highly suggest the office manager and the health clerks. Again, I've been putting myself in the emails so that I can get them, but the parents can, when in the setup, if we have stuff already in there, if something no longer applies, there's a button that they can click, no longer applies. So say they used to have an EpiPen and they no longer have it, they can click no longer applies. That'll show up here. Also on the medical header, it'll say if additional forms are needed, the site will be contacting you. So if they add a new thing that might need the medical release form or, more information, you'll be able to follow up on that, but it follows up here. The authorizations, this is basically letting you know that, and Turtle Bay has the emergency fields, so authorizations I was going through and cleaning up a lot, because no matter how I worded things, they approved certain things several times. So this is the in case of an emergency, pick one. Well, they picked several. So they notify parent pickup, but then they did deny. So I removed all the denies out of Aeries and left. So on this particular student, it's notify the parent and only the parent can pick them up. This is the image release, they approved it, and looks like they approved it again. So if they approved it twice, I went and I took one out. There's also the yearbook only choice in there. So if they approve the image release and then they deny the yearbook, or they approve the yearbook, I've been taking the yearbook one out. But in the instructions for you guys, we've got, so this is what the parent sees. So they have to go through it. And I'm letting you know that the address change requests need to be followed up on. And how, their information is showing up. And I gave you one of the little snippets. So changing from blank to this address, from blank to Shasta Lake, from blank to California. So they were actually adding some information. But here you can see this is all lowercase. So if I'm running labels to contacts, that's how it's going to come out on the label. So as you're looking at the email, I would go in and fix that one. So on the student demographic information, they're limited to what they can change. That's all hard-coded by Aeries, so there's nothing I can change on that. They are allowed to change birth dates, so if you see that in the email, double-check the birth certificate. And if you don't have one, ask for one. But again, that's not something I can change. Aeries has hard-coded and allowed that to happen. They can change all of this information, but again, it comes through as an email to you for the addresses. Medical information, they can change and update. So then, this is also where they will be doing that military survey and the resident survey. So these two things are on the Parents' Rights booklet as well. But once you're going through the data confirmation, when they're going through this is going to automatically create those program records. So it's going to automatically, once you confirm it, create a record for the military service. Once you confirm it, it'll create the resident survey. So here's the military survey. So these are, put where they're at. So it's student data, other. So if I go student data, I'm actually going to go to Turtle Bay since they've got some. And with Turtle Bay being a transition between office managers and it being the first year, some of this stuff didn't quite get completely followed up on, but we're going to do terrific this next year. Okay, so student data, other, military survey audit. So it comes through like this. And here's your list of people that have answered yes or no. If I were to go ahead and click confirm, if I leave it date submitted, it's not picking up this date. It's picking up today's date. So we want to actually, and these instructions are in my binder, we would actually want to choose the custom date, and the eligibility date, we're going to be 11/14/17. And then I'm going to confirm. So it tells me that a PGM record has been created. I can click there to view it. And as long as I changed that date to the date the parent actually did it, there's nothing else I have to do on this one. But it automatically created that. So it does the same thing with the residence survey. So if I go down here into other, here's this residence survey audit. So these are people that have, in the survey, they have chosen, we're temporarily doubled up, or none of the above. None of the above, it's not going to show up here. You can filter these by pending, confirmed, or rejected. Pending is what it defaults to. The only time I can imagine that you would reject a record would be if you've already manually entered the code, or you've done some follow-up on the temporary doubled up and you find out that, no, they're really not homeless. They are living with grandparents because the grandparents are in failing health. So it's not because of economic hardship that they're doubled up, it's because they're really not homeless. So on that one, you would reject. But on these, if you, again, you would go with the custom date, and you would go with the date submitted, and homeless is participation date, but they give you the ability to fill in both dates. And homeless is participating, I'm pretty sure.
So when we're running these end dates for all these special programs, do you want us to include that? Like, I know I've tagged one of my kids in special programs. Do you want us to also end that 6/6/18? And like TK and homeless and all that? Do we need to add military there?
The military, I think we can leave open.
Okay.
But I will double check on that. Okay, so we're doing 11/06/2017. And so I'm going to confirm. So again, it tells me the record's been created, but on the homeless, you definitely have to click here, because, okay, so I chose participation, it didn't fill in participation. So homeless, it's the eligibility date, so it chose today. But if I had done that right, the reason you need to go into it is so that you can put the runaway and the unaccompanied youth. So you would just click change, add the runaway and the unaccompanied youth, and then save it. This one I'm going to go ahead and cancel and delete it because we didn't do it earlier. So they will go through, it's basically the first thing that they see is this military and resident survey. So they will go through that. I would suggest that maybe on a daily basis, if at all possible, you pull up these surveys. If you can't do it on a daily basis, do it at least once a week. You know, if Friday is your best day that you can do this, do it on Fridays. But these do need to be looked at, because if, when you're doing the online data confirmation, if they're not marking the parents' rights booklet, you need a way to get that in here. So like I said, the only time that you would be rejecting the resident survey is if you've already put in the program code. And if you've got two screens, you could pull up the other screen with another version of Aeries in a different browser, or if your Google lets you do an incognito window, then you can have two versions of Aeries open and look up the kids to see, okay, did I already have a record in there? Then you could click reject if you already have a record. But these kids, as far as I know, if they didn't already have a record manually entered, they didn't get counted for CalPads. So that's another reason why you need to go through and make sure that you're seeing your surveys and you're entering, clicking confirm or reject so that the confirms go to CalPads. So that's still more of the resident stuff. And okay, so let me back up a little bit. If there's already one in there, so here, if by chance you already manually entered a homeless record and you click confirm, you get a red message. Another active PGM record exists. So it's not going to duplicate the records. It's been a couple of days since I wrote these notes. So medical history, like I said, they can do no longer applies. It'll add an end date in the medical history record for the student. It doesn't delete it. So in the medical history for a student, this is where it's the type of information that it's getting. If this student had stuff, it would not delete it. It would put an end date. I don't know if we've got anybody real quick. Okay, so let's say these allergies no longer apply. The parent could click no longer applied. It'll put an end date in here. The record itself will stay, but it'll have an end date. Authorizations for Turtle Bay, like I said, I have the emergency information in authorizations, so the parents are seeing different choices in case of an emergency. So if Bonneview is still using those, we can make sure that those are marked for them to choose. Sequoia, we did not do that. We just have the image release. For Stellar, we just have the image release. And there are no screenshots for me to be able to give you what the parent sees. Same way, documents. Currently, the only document that is uploaded is the district's parent portal use. But each school site, the parent portal acceptable use, each school site can have different things uploaded, and I can lock it down to only Turtle Bay sees this, or only Bonneview sees this. So like if you have a student handbook, I think Sequoia is going to be getting their student handbook. It'll be available for all the grades at Sequoia, but only for Sequoia. Chromebook agreement, I'm going to be taking that out because actually that is on our district webpage and goes directly to the IT department. So I'm going to take that out. But if you have different flyers for the first day, I need to check with Liz and Robert to see if we can put the accident insurance information up so they, instead of handing it out to everybody, if they're doing this, they'll be able to get it there. Volunteer forms, bell schedules, any document that is uploaded will be available to the parent after the date of confirmation is done. And I was just thinking something. Now I remember where I was going. Third grade up definitely needs to be using parent portals because there is a change coming with the student score reports from CASP. This year is a pilot year. Just certain districts are getting this to where they're not going to get a hard copy of the student score report. They're going to get a digital to the vendor, so to Aeries, and it's going to be through the parent portal. There will be a special button that they will click on that sends a request to CalTAC. CalTAC will give them an email with the link to access the student score report. So CalTAC is getting to the point where they're no longer going to send us a hard copy. So this year's a pilot year, next year is when it's gonna actually start. So next year's testing, the results from next year will be coming digital. It won't be coming in a hard copy. So that also means there will not be a copy for the CUM. So I'm not sure at this point how we're handling that. I don't know if they're gonna have it to where the project tech can get to it from Tom's. They may be able to do that. I'm not sure yet. But through Aeries, we'll be able to get to it through the test scores on each student, and the teachers will be able to get to it that way. But the parents will have to log in through their portal. So third grade and up definitely are gonna need to get used to using the parent portal.
And that's going on now or starting next year?
The results from this year are pilots. So just a few districts and a few SIS vendors. So I did touch base with Aeries, and they do have some districts that are testing it out. So that's, like I said, coming.
I'd imagine we would have to figure out a way to print the feel if parents don't have internet access.
Yeah, and that's also for this data confirmation process. I think like at Sequoia, they're playing with the idea because they have a scheduled pickup night, possibly breaking that maybe into 1 or 2 different nights. So maybe 6th graders one night because they've got a whole lot of other stuff to do. 7th and 8th graders maybe together. Or they may break it up into 3. They're working on their thought process of how they're going to do this. But they're also thinking of setting up a small lab type situation. So here again on back to school night, maybe while the parents are in that teacher's classroom, have some of the Chromebooks available. Who hasn't been able to do their data confirmation in their portal? Well, let's go ahead and let's log in right now and get them all to do it right then and there. Once they've gone through all of their confirmation stuff, the last step is to confirm it and print a new report, print a new student emergency card. So there are instructions in the portal for them to print that, sign it, and return it to the school. So anytime that they've changed information, they should be printing a new one and signing it and returning it to the school. So there again, if they were able to do it on their phone, but they weren't able to print it, if in the office there's at least one station available, so I think like at Turtle Bay, you guys have one out on the counter out there, then the parent could log in and print it to the school office type thing. To be able to see who has done their confirmation, there is on a student, there's a data confirmation log. So on a student, that would look like, let's see if this one has done it. So this is looking at the student, everything that the parent has done. So that's one way, but that's not the best way for you to be able to know who's done it and who hasn't. But that's one way to be able to see it. The other one is this data confirmation status. And this can be printed by teacher or sorted by teacher. So say it comes to another time when maybe parent conferences. And you run this report, sort by teacher. You can filter this and say, I want to see who has not completed. So right now, this screenshot is everybody. So where the gray is are people that have not done it. Well, this has also got TK in first grade, but like here's a 4th grader, hasn't done it. A 5th grader hasn't done it. The 6th grader has done it. So you can filter that, and that's under student data reports. So if I go student data reports, this data confirmation status. So if I go only students without all data confirmed. And I want to sort this by teacher because I'm giving it out on conferences. So if I run the report, I can print this. So Ms. Baker, yes, there is a third grader. They've only done 2 things. So they haven't done authorizations, contacts. So, they haven't finished it, and I may not have had things locked down for them to be able to do things without either that or they just didn't finish it. So there's no final. So there's Mr. Barnett's, there's Ms. Baxter's. So, this is the kids who have not done it. So Beckel's got some 8th graders that haven't. So they can then touch base with these parents during parent conferences and let them know, hey, we'd really love for you to be able to use the parent portal. And if your kindergartners aren't doing it, they don't, but when it comes to the data, we might want them to start getting portal accounts. Otherwise, your kindergartners, your 3rd grade and under, would get the student emergency cards. But, they can touch base with these people and say, hey, do you need some help? We really need you to go through and finish up your confirmation because did you know this is going to be how you get your student score report for testing. This is how you can keep up on their grades so they can kind of promote the parent portal. So this, I've gone through and shown what the parent sees so that you guys can see what it is that they'll see. And like I said, I meet with each school as we get this going, and I go through with you, and we go over what is kind of becoming generic language, but in what I let the school sites kind of decide is, windows. So right now, Turtle Bay only wanted parents to be able to do any data changing between August and October. So if a parent's address changed between October and May, they weren't able to change it online. They'd have to do it through the office. Where next year, I think, like Stellar, we made the window the whole year. Sequoia, we made the window the whole year. But when we lock it down, is here. So between August and October, the parent can't see anything until they finish their confirmation. And then we have a second window open towards the end of the year because we want them to do it again to make sure we have the most current address for right now for those student score reports that keep getting returned because the address is bad. But we go through and I kind of tell you, okay, so whose emails do you want to get the changes? So I've got Jessica in here and I got me. And then for the medical, at the time, Andrea was the health clerk. So she's been getting the emails. But we would put in the emails to the people you want to get them. And then we kind of go over what the different things are going to read and say. And then we really don't have to do anything here because it's already done. But then I go through and I've made sure all of the things are checked. The only thing I'm not checking is miscellaneous because they don't need to pick that. Then I go through with you and say, okay, are you using the emergency stuff? So this is where if you're using the emergency stuff, then I'll copy what I've done here for Turtle Bay into yours. But choose allow if you'd like the school to notify you in case of a school emergency, such as a power outage, evacuation, etc. Please choose at least one other option. I have asked for a design change so that when the parents see it, it's like, since I've chosen type as A, that the type would be like the header, and then the choices would be under that header. I've heard nothing from my request yet. Because I'm like, well, why do you have us choose a type if you're not going to break it off and show it kind of separate from everything else? But the only thing that currently is marked as meeting a required response is the image release. So choose allow or deny release of your student's picture for use on the school, district websites, local media, yearbook, etc. If you choose to allow, then there's no need to mark the yearbook choice. If your site does not want a yearbook only choice, then we can certainly not mark allow or deny, and we can change the wording in the image release. Because I seem to recall there was some conversation of having that choice removed.
Yeah, the last year's handbook didn't have that choice.
So if at Sequoia, you guys, because I think we put the yearbook only. So if you guys don't want the yearbook only, we can take that off.
We had people cross that one. Several parents had that.
So you do want the yearbook only? Okay. So when we get to Bonneview, if you don't want yearbook only, then we can make sure we don't want it.
Done with that.
So just keep that in mind when I come over there. So, that's the data confirmation stuff. And like I said, I've got all of the directions in here for you so that you know where to go to find your military audit and your residence audit. Those of you that haven't transitioned over to this yet and are still getting the student emergency cards, and you're getting the parents' rights booklet sheet that has the housing survey on it, please remember to have the homeless program codes entered into Aeries by October 3rd, because that is CalPAD's information day, and I will start sending files up. And my certification for that is usually December, so I don't want to come December and find out after I've certified that, oh, there were kids that were homeless at the beginning of the school year, but the records didn't get put in. I have a tendency to get a little upset if that happens. Because then I have to decertify my data. So let's see, moving on. Yes,
Since the window begins on August 1st before school starts, have we talked about how we let parents know that, is there an email that goes from Aeries to the parents to say?
there's not an email, but from my experience, I think most sites send out some type of a welcome back letter. I'm not sure what the timing is, if that's sent the first day of school, if it's sent like as soon as the office manager is back, they get that put together and sent out. But I would definitely suggest in that letter some verbiage. I don't have anything as an example. I can try and come up with something if you want. But some verbiage saying that, we are starting off a new year with a new procedure for parents, and, we are encouraging everybody to get their portal accounts going. As soon as we have an email for you, you will automatically get a portal account, and we need you to update your information through that account. Because as soon as you put in a parent email on the contact screen, they automatically will be getting an email. Me having to do the mass create is only because of the student ones, basically, that SES program is inserting, because Aeries doesn't recognize the backdoor slip-in with the manual entry. So those that Seth has been creating and putting the emails in haven't been getting the automatic email. But anytime you change or update the parent contact email, if you're updating it, it may pop up a message saying, this is associated with an account. Do you want to leave the account, or, but that will encourage parents to give you emails so that can get put in. But I would definitely suggest it going in, even if it's a separate flyer maybe, of some, what they can be expecting. Oh, let's see. Before I go to the inter-districts, Karen wanted me to touch base with you and let you know that she had emailed y'all about textbook reordering. And she's still doing some research on what to be expecting. So as soon as she has that, she will update you guys by email. And she also said that we will be using inventory sheets. So as you guys do your inventory of your textbooks at your sites and you send that, because I think something went out.
Yes.
That's kind of a other side of the wall for me, so I don't get 100% of what's going on. But I guess from those inventory sheets, if one site says that they've only got, say, 15 books and they need 20, and another site has more than what they need, then they'll use those inventory sheets to kind of shift books around or use them to see what they need to order. So just be on the lookout for more of that information coming. So intra and inter-districts. Both of these are getting scanned into Aeries and uploaded to student documents. I've had a request from Lori to make sure that all of the information is complete on them. And she's like, especially the dates and the year that the request is for. At least it's away from your papers. So on the inter-district form, up in the upper left-hand corner, there is that what school year is it for. So make sure to, when you're getting that from the parent, you're helping them that you're putting what school year that's for. Also the date that it's filled out, student's birthday, you know, that type of stuff. And then same way with on the intra, there's places for dates, so make sure the dates and, you know, everything else is filled out. It helps us out quite a bit in the district office here. There are procedures for this in the data entry guide, again, under procedures. Inter. So intra is basically open enrollment. So it's within our district. Inters are outside our district, coming or going. Those that we are accepting in, we have said are good for 5 years. If you get an address change from a parent, so like those that are doing data confirmation online, you know, kind of double check that address if you don't recognize it. For those that are in the 96001 zip code, anybody in the 01 zip code is definitely ours. But like Turtle Bay is in the 03 zip code. So some of the 03s are ours, but some of the 03s are Columbia, some of them are Gateway. So Turtle Bay's got more of the, gotta check them. But anything 02 is definitely not ours. So when you're doing your data confirmation, looking at those emails, anybody's address that goes to 02, if they don't already have an intra-district, they'll need one. So if it's an intra and you're using the intra in this inter-district code, the school that they're coming from, when you put the address in, will populate from the street code, from the street table. Don't fill in the trans district with the school. I've caught that a few times where it's an intra here and they've put one of their RSD schools here. This field is only for inter-districts and it is the district that goes there, not the school. So it's Cottonwood Union School District, not West Cottonwood, not North Cottonwood. It's Enterprise School District, not Mistletoe. So, and that's another thing. I know there are some of you guys that are scanning and uploading your inter-districts as you get the approval. I may be scanning and uploading over what you've done because I put some extra little notes on it. Because then I'm also double checking to make sure that this is correct and that there's a date. But, you know, we are scanning those in. And
So if we normally don't scan them in, we don't need to?
correct,
Okay, thank you.
because they come up through my desk and I'm making sure they get scanned in. Because I'm also making sure the document name, because the category is inter-district, I just need the name of the district. And then if it's conditional, there's a subcategory called conditional. If this one happens to get revoked, then I probably will scan it a second time over this and change that subcategory to revoked. That way it'll have the original approval and the revoke with the letter. I've been, as I catch them, changing the related to be STU. It's kind of a security thing, but everybody has access to STU, so, but just to keep things clean and consistent. So I have a query on here so that you can get a list of who's on an inter-district and who's, and actually this is querying the document table, so it's querying where the inter-districts are uploaded to, so that you can see, you know, a date that it was, the date that I'm using is the date it was signed by Rob. So that's the date, the grade that they got it, the document name, so that'll be the district name, the document category, description will say inter-district, the document subcategory description, that's what the question mark means, will then say whether or not it's conditional. Because when we put it on the student demographic screen, there's no way of marking it conditional. So if you wanted to see who's conditional, you could run this, and then if you're only wanting to see your inter-district in the list, then the document category is 7. Then that'll give you a list of just the kids that have an inter-district scanned up to them. And then speaking of student documents, of course, there is in here, in the data guide, a student documents. So if, when you're doing birth certificates, if you've forgotten, you know, you come back from the summer, how do I do this again? Or you're asking the health clerk to start doing something and she doesn't know how to do it, well, then you can give her the directions. But I don't know if the health clerks have their own scanner, but if they have the ability to scan, say, at the copier to their computer, then that would work for them. These are the easy directions on how to do it. And here's, you know, student documents, a little test showing when you hit the print here, it shows you what documents you have and who uploaded it. And then to view it, clicking on the little icon. So those are some quick directions on how to do it. So intra-districts, I'm scanning them regardless of what the sites, I know I've got a couple of sites that have been scanning them, so, but I'm still doing it. Intras, Lori is scanning them. She's been working on that here recently. SARB contracts are being scanned and uploaded, and that's being done by the SARB secretary. I have some stored away that I need to project because the contracts are usually good through 8th grade, so I've got some that are older than when we started this. IT has been doing the Chromebook invoices, so you might see a Chromebook invoice document scanned to a student. Birth verifications should be getting scanned by the sites. And here again, if you need some help getting caught up, because we would like to have them all up there, because another reason for having them up there in the student documents, when Aeries gets to the point of not being in beta testing, they have a records transfer system that they've been working on that works between Aeries districts. So if we have the birth certificates attached to student documents, then if Cascade gets one of our kids, this records transfer thing, they can say, okay, I'm gonna make this request of Sycamore, because I'm getting one of their kids. And when Sycamore approves the request, then behind the scenes, this data request thing will pull grades, it'll pull attendance, it'll pull shop records, it'll pull student documents. So if you've got SARP contracts or the birth certificate, it'll pull that and take it all and send it to Cascade. So then Cascade, when they get it, they can say, okay, I want that, I want that, I want that, and it'll automatically upload it. So between Aeries districts, that might make it possible to get things a little bit quicker. But I don't think it's gonna do away with faxing the request. But that's one reason for making sure that it's up there. Also, as I've been getting them, I've been trying to make sure that the foster youth JD 535 forms are put up. That's the change of who they're appointing as the representative for the student, if I'm remembering it right. And I think some of you are doing it this year, but definitely starting next year, we want to do this because I'm hearing that this is going to be something that the auditors will be looking at. They are going to start wanting backup. Why did you drop this student? So if we have the CUM request loaded and attached to student documents, then we can be able to say, oh, there it is. We have a request. That's why we dropped it. Like I said, I know some of you have started doing that, but for the document name, put the name of the school making the request, and if it's a school outside of California, add the state with the school name. So if it was Rogers Elementary -TX for Texas, or UT for Utah, so we know that it went out of state that way. And the category, there is a records request category, so you would choose the records request. And I'm trying to keep an eye on my time here. So I did print out the inter-district information for you. I did print out the student documents for you, as well as being able to find it online. Let's see here. A reminder for your 504s and your special ed. Make sure you're red flagging them. And the 504s are, we're not using, we're not using the special program screen for 504s anymore. We are using the 504 plan screen. So it's still under programs, under student data, but it's 504 plans. So if this student had a 504 plan, and I'm just going to show you, I'm not going to do anything. On this screen, all that's getting put in is the effective date. You can put the next review date in, but you don't need to put any other information in. Our SELPA prefers that the forms that they've approved be used, but for CalPATH reporting, we still need to put it in Aeries. So just the effective date and the review date. If they end up no longer on a 504 and they end up going to an IEP, then yes, you would need to put the leave date. Once you've done this, make sure that you are putting the red flag. Because this is on the 504 screen, it will show, it'll say 504 over here. Where when we were putting them in the special program screen, it would say special program over here and you'd have to put a comment 504 plan. So when you're flagging the special ed screen or the 504 plan screen, the page will say special education or 504. Also, when your discipline entry person does any data entry in discipline for these students, it shows up red when they add a new incident. It'll say this student is on a 504 or this student is special ed or receiving special ed services. So that helps them to know what else they need, but that has nothing to do with the flags. But we want the flags because then also on the profile screen, well, it used to be on this screen. There used to be a flags area down here, but they've changed that up. So, but there's flags here, so this is showing one. So one of the big caveats for this is like transportation. They do have access to our data. So if there's an issue with a student on the bus, they need to be able to look the student up, see flags, they need to be able to click on flags and see, does the student have a 504? If they have a 504, do we have a copy of it because does it say anything about transportation? So they would look to see if they have a copy of it. If they don't, then they may be contacting the site to find out, you know, this student has a 504. Is there anything in there about transportation? You know, are we supposed to be making any special accommodations for them on the bus? So that helps them know what their next step should be with a student. So that's a reminder to make sure that you're getting those flagged. And let's see, special programs. If you can remember to do it, I would greatly appreciate it. I know sometimes it feels like I'm asking a lot, but this version of Aeries doesn't give me quite as much information as what CS used to do. CS used to kind of let me know who put in a record. But if you can remember when you're adding, not necessarily a TK record, but if you're adding like the homeless record, put by M. Cole and the date that you're adding it, because the date that you're adding it may not actually be the start date. And then also for the homeless one, it's not homeless, there is under the disadvantaged status, there is a drop down, and the disadvantaged status is what type of notification did you get that the student was homeless? Was it the teacher that told you? Was it the student that told you? Was it from the online registration? So when you're doing that resident survey, not only the homeless and the runaway youth, you could pick the online registration for the disadvantaged status. Was it the parent that notified you, or was it from the gold card? You know, how did you get notified of them being homeless? And that's more of a district wanting to kind of figure out, okay, how are we finding this information out? So, you know, just kind of a reminder of doing that. And for 18-19, we have the fair share surveys coming again. We're adding Bonneview to CEPs. And we're adding IGO to CEPs. So Bonneview and IGO will be getting fair share surveys to go out to all your kids. So it looks like we are going to reset our base here. So Cypress, Sycamore, Juniper, CBS, Bonneview, and IGO. All of your students are going to need to get a fair share survey. Stellar, all of yours will get the same thing, but you're not CEP. Yours is for a different reason. So Bonneview and IGO, if you don't already have a received stamp with the date, I would highly suggest getting one, because for CalCAFs, if you received it at your desk by October 31st, and it's November 1st that I actually get it, I can still count it. So the date stamp is really important, because it might take a day or two for it to get to me. And as long as I see a date stamp of October 31st, the auditors cannot say anything about me putting the kid in as being free or reduced.
How will they be going out? Is it something that will be given to me to put in the first day packet?
Yes.
Okay.
I have made the adjustments to the fair share survey. So when do you guys need the copy so that you can make copies? Do you want it when you first get back? Do you want it before you go?
Either way is fine with me.
I'd take it before.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Okay, so I can email those. You want them this week?
Sure.
Sure.
because I've already made the updates to the year, and that's basically the only thing I have to email. Okay, so let's go. This year, you guys kind of miraculously each chose a different color to print them on, which helps me a lot to know, okay, this is sycamores. I can work on sycamores, pull all of that color out, because I end up putting them kind of together. So, cypress, what color do you want? Are you gonna
Ours was pink this year.
You want to say pink?
Sure.
Sycamore.
Green.
Green. Juniper, I think. Blue. Your shirts are blue, right? Oh, Turtle Bay's also blue.
Bonnie.
I'm thinking Juniper's was green. No, Juniper wasn't green. It might have been yellow.
school color.
Well, we'll leave that blank. So, Community Day, you did not put yours on a color. Yours were just white, which is fine, because it still separates them out. So, Bonneview, what color would you like to print yours on?
Blue if Juniper doesn't have blue.
Well, since Juniper's not here to represent.
That's what you get.
Don't
Denise's gonna tell her her color.
Sellers, yours were on. What color did you guys
I
put?
think we just applied last year. We do whatever you want. Lavender.
Is that what color you want?
Mix it up.
Okay, so I go, we've got pink gone, green's gone, white, blue, and lavender's gone.
Yellow.
So you're gonna go canary? So canary is the lighter yellow. So that means I'm gonna get juniper goldenrod. Okay, so this fair share survey, because you guys are CEP schools, that basically means everybody gets to eat at no cost. But we still have to report to CalPADS who's eligible. So for Stellar, because they don't have a meal program, I still have to report who's eligible for free or reduced meals. So that's where this fair share survey comes in. It's an alternate application type of thing. And I manually put that information into Aeries and it picks it out whether it's free or reduced based on the information parents give me. Then that goes up to CalPADS. So as soon as you're gonna be stamping them all, send me that stack. Next day, you get more, you stamp them, send me that stack. As they come trickling in, send them to me. Tawny and I are kind of discussing, and I'm gonna throw it out there. Since next year we're giving them to everybody, for 1920, technically we don't have to give them to everybody. We can give them just to new students, which would mean just the kindergartners and anybody new, any other grade. Do you think that is easier, or do you think it would just be easier to give to everybody? And then I can take care of whether it's a duplicate or not.
I just wouldn't want to miss anybody. I mean,
So
I
giving-
guess giving it to everybody, I mean, that is kind of a waste of paper though.
Well, and, I was kind of thinking, that it is kind of, okay, kindergarten, yeah, okay, but who's new in first grade? Make sure so-and-so gets this, make sure, so,
I would just add
Or
it
their
in my first day
circumstances
packet.
may change.
Right.
yeah. Because I'm thinking there should be no reason why we can't just go ahead and give them to everybody. And then on my side, I do some certain things, bringing data in from the previous year. And then when I get this form, if I've already got a record in there, then I can just toss the form.
Will that be more work for you then? That sounds like more work for you.
No, because I already have to bring the data in regardless. Next year, I'm going to be starting from scratch. But for 1920, I would have to pull the 18-19 data in regardless of which way we do it, because I have to have that data in and change the start date.
You probably have to have new information if people change jobs or different income taxes.
Well, basically what the guidelines have been is that if they filled it out in your base year, they don't need to fill out a new one. So unless Because if they did not qualify, there would not be a record in there, in Aeries. But if they did qualify, if I end up with a duplicate one, I can ignore that because they've already filled one in. And that's the one I go for the next 2 years.
Or not everybody turns them in, and then the following year you may get
Yeah,
in from somebody who
Or-
did turn it in the previous year.
yeah, and plus, this coming year, there's a new little, statement on there that if they leave it blank or put 0, then that's them basically promising that there is no income, and then I'm gonna manually override the way Shalene has been doing. I haven't been doing that. So that might catch a few more. So we'll just kind of plan on everyone getting one each year. And then I'll take care of it on my end. Okay. Okay, so we're getting close to being done. So some ongoing housekeeping type thing. RAL entries. I have printed this out. It is also in the light binder. Because we have some new people, and if you have others in your office helping do entries, you could give them this. And I kind of think, if I was in an office, I probably would print this and then I would cut this out and stick it on my monitor like I have done several other things. Because this is kind of the naming convention I want to try and stick with, when we're, come on. I'm going the easy way where I know it's at. So that everything is consistent, because I do query this data. So this reason field here is this little chart. Come on. And I do periodically go through and clean things up. So transfer to and transfer from, that's within our SD. So as I'm going through and doing cleanup, if I'm seeing a transfer to and it's to a different district, I am changing it to withdrawal. Or if I'm seeing a transfer from and it's from a different district, I am changing it to new enrollee. So new enrollee is from outside of RSD. I am trying really hard not to change the dropped to withdrawal. But when I'm kind of retroactively cleaning up, anytime I've seen dropped, I've been changing it to withdrawal. But if it's something recent, I'm trying not to, but I don't know that I've been 100% restrictive on myself. Because dropped would more be the student left without the parent notifying us that we had to have the SRO go out and verify that the family is gone. So I don't know that I've been 100% not changing that, but I'm really trying. Where withdrawal, the student left, the parent notified us that they were left. If it says star or CASP, those are basically what I've been making entries of. Miscellaneous is basically, something that you're just wanting to add a note. Transportation, I think I've kind of changed that up. If it's really more relates to being homeless, I've been putting McKinney-Vento instead. But if you guys happen to make a transportation notation in there, using transportation. So basically, short and sweet is the reasons. The sent CUM request, that's if you want to make a separate entry. Again, we've kind of discussed before that if you, make an entry and you put, sent CUM request over here, that works too. So, or if this was a withdrawal and you received the CUM request the same day that the withdrawal was, then you could put that here, and then if it was 2 days later, this could be a separate entry of CUM sent, or you could add it down to your CUM sent and the date. That I'm not being too picky about them being completely separate entries. They can be all in one line. I have been kind of going through and because I've even been working on the inactive school stuff. But if it's a relatively local school like West Cottonwood, if there was an address, I've been taking the address off because it's a local school, and that kind of helps to realize that's a local school and say, but if there was an out of area, Evergreen is my cutoff. If it's further south than Evergreen, then Jackson Heights, Red Bluff, or Butte. I've been leaving it as Butte Junior, the Shingletown, or Black Butte. Because but if it was any further than that, then more description. Gateways as far north that can just be the school. If it's further north than that, then, but you guys have been really good about putting them in. Just kind of want the date, try and make it the date that it happened. So the date that the withdrawal happened. Not today's date and then a notation in here that they withdrew back in September type thing. Because I do pull this information for the enters and leaves. You see me send out little emails. And I do also go through and clean up because it's easier when I have to go and filter when it's in Excel to be able to find, okay, I need all the withdrawals or transfer twos. If withdrawal is spelled incorrectly, well, that's something else I have to filter for. And so I'm being a little anal and I go through my cleanup, but
So for Reading Homeschool, that would be a transfer to and a transfer from.
yes.
With our district, right?
Yeah.
So that's a request I have, I guess.
Yeah, and I noticed that you have been putting, when you're wearing your Sequoia hat, you're Amy Sequoia. When you're wearing your college prep hat, you're Amy CPA. So that works. So just, I think every once in a while it's been either somebody who's brand new or somebody who hasn't been doing the entries that you've asked to start doing them. So, maybe give them this and say, okay, look at some of your past entries. You might see that they've been changed. Denise is anal. She's OCD. She's everything.
Please, speaking of data entry for incoming kindergartners, since we have new folks here, do we still need to add in on the second demographic screen what preschool they came from for the data?
Yes. I believe we still do. I would stay in that habit. If you don't have the list or can't find the list, let me know and I will send it to you. But we have a list that has been given to us to put in.
Where's last school 900? On the TK, it's pulled down there.
So this last school here, so if I go and I go change. There is a drop-down list. And the list that I have has, whether it's Busy Bee, Council, Grant, Preschool, so it's the different preschools in the area. If they're not on this list, then it might be another Head Start site that's not in the list. But they want us to, so your kindergarten parent should be marking what the preschool was. So, be on the lookout if they have not put that to get that. But yes, thank you, Cheryl.
And if they didn't go to preschool, do you indicate that as well or no?
Do I indicate? Yeah, I had my 70, I had the R.
Okay.
And I think it would be blank if it was nothing.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so we did kind of already talked about attendance, so we can skip that. But it's, where that checklist is in the pink tabs. So now in your packets, so some new stuff. And so the first thing is a records request form, and this one has been done up and it's RSD schools only. So it does not have Stellar on here, it does not have IGO, and it does not have Shasta. It's just our main sites. So if Stellar would like to have one like this, and I can just Stellar down here at the bottom, but you guys have one that you
I have one that I
use.
created, so yeah, thank you.
But this gives it, I've had several different requests forms that I've looked at, not only ours, but from different districts. There was one district in here that their writing is so small. And there was another district that had, the whole page was almost all of the district. But I ran this by Cindy. Cindy really likes it. It's uniform across the district. And currently it's not a fillable form, but I can make it fillable if you would like it to be. And I kind of went off of our different requests. So
Parents no longer have to sign.
no, it's not needed.
This is really nice, Denise, I really like it.
Yeah, there's a little thing at the bottom that says a school district in which a student enrolls may request student records from a school the student last attended without a parent signature or approval. So it's C, protection of the rights and privacy of parents and student, section 438, subsection B1, parts A and B, page 97, as amended in 1976. I think I might have gotten that off of somebody else's. Or actually, is that on Cypress? Can I see that? It's actually on Cypress's. Is where I pulled that from. So we can start using this. I'm not sure if I put it up in the share file yet, but it will get there. Do we want it to be fillable to fill it in online, or do you want to just continue
That'd be
writing?
great.
Fillable?
Yeah, copy and paste.
Okay, so I will make it fillable so that it can be done online, and then just print it out. That way, you know, fillable always makes it so things are easier to
Typed
read.
in look pretty after the first 2 weeks of school. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to take a real short break because I cannot sit here any longer. Where did it go? So if anybody else needs a short break,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I like that.
okay, we are recording again. I'm gonna skip the teacher checkouts for just a second, because that's gonna take a bit. Let's jump to the student check-in, or student CUM check-in. I don't know how many sites are still using these. I've seen an example, the one I have here is Juniper. So I don't know if it's something that is still used at the sites, or has it kind of gone away?
I use one.
So I kind of put this together from Juniper, so I don't know, is there anything that we need to do to update it? And I'm still kind of looking for something that is uniform across the district, so that if somebody's sub somewhere, they've got the same thing going, or if an office clerk or an office manager happens to change from one site to another, or, somebody that has been helping you do this type of thing, switches sites, the procedure's the same at every site. So I'm kind of going off of only the one sample I could ever find. So does this look well enough the way it is, or do some things need to be added?
Where's it at?
It might be 2 pages stapled together, or they might be separate. They're behind the teacher checkouts. So currently I've got office checklists, enrollment pack, sent CUM requests, enter on computer, resure no previous student number. So that's an important one. Enter immunizations on computer, schedule into class, and I got ES for those that have more classes. Then to also notify cafeteria, teacher, student services, library, food services, project tech, health clerk, admin, RST, instructional coach, counselor, because that was off of the one request from Cindy of making sure that you're emailing all of these different people. So kind of added that to it.
Your name's not.
On student services. I figured I'd make it generic, that way for the time when I'm no longer here.
Do you think that we could, I know that we're not gonna be meeting with you, Denise, on the next meeting, but do you think, I was gonna suggest that we all bring ours to the next meeting and get time to collaborate. I heard we might get a little bit of time, and maybe we could revise one together. My
Check-in.
list has a few more items on here.
Yeah, so if you want, take this back to your site, find yours, see what is missing off of this that might be on yours, and then certainly.
Okay.
So that's the check-in. So then the same thing with the check-out. So student and CUM check-outs. I had 2 samples, and so I kind of went, okay, that and that are the same, and that are the same. One had something a little bit different, so I tried to kind of combine them on. The only thing, Cindy had a suggestion on my, before sending CUM out, put office before that, so that the teacher knows that it's the office, because one sample had the teacher stuff at the top, the other sample had the office at the top. And realistically, when a student or a CUM is being checked out, it starts in the office, then goes to the teacher, then comes back to the office. So I'm thinking either office before sending CUM out, or before sending CUM out, office in parentheses, so that the teacher knows that's the office part. But the only thing that I kind of did a little bit different, I included Chromebook check-in and charger in. I added those 2. But this is, again, like you suggested, maybe on the 15th, if you guys have time to do it. Otherwise, we could talk about it in the kickoff meeting as well. This is just, kind of throwing out, what do you think? Who's not using it? I don't know our new office managers, if they've even seen these. It might help as, it goes around to the different people in your office that, okay, you did, you inactivated the student on the computer, and then Ashley pulled the emergency card, and then, so as it goes to the different people that do different things, they could check it off. So.
And Ashley might have this, and I just don't know about it, but I don't know.
So we will, because I don't know that, I'm gonna try and be on your meeting on the 15th. But we'll see how that goes, whether or not you guys get to talk about it or not. Like I said, we can talk about it during the kickoff meeting as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at the teacher checkout list. Like I said, when I was thinking teacher checkout, I was thinking a list. So mine's the top one. That's what I used at West Cottonwood. But then I got the different ones from the site. So I've got one, I'm not sure which site this one is. Oh, Stellar's. give your order to Tori. So hers is a one pager. And Manzanita, I've got, so there's a one page on top and then kind of follow it behind it. So I'm kind of, I think what Cindy was kind of thinking when she originally asked to have these in is, again, to try and get something as consistent as possible across the district, because we do have teachers that move, and it would be great if the checkout at Turtle Bay was as similar as possible as the checkout at Manzanita, as the checkout at Sycamore, so that they don't get thrown for a loop. But as long as it's in a list, that helps them. I know one thing to be added to the list is making sure that their attendance verifications are signed. So I think, looking to see if I had that on my list. Ah, yes, number 4, make sure attendance sheets are signed. So I did have that, but there might have been things that we didn't do down in Cottonwood that is done up here. So I don't know, there's definitely not time to do this today, but you've all got samples of those that were able to send them to me early. So I'm just kind of wondering if there's a way that we can come up with a list, and then maybe if the packet stuff can be as close as possible. Some sites might have a few additional things that other sites might not have, but if we can, maybe we might need an extra day to kind of talk about it, where that's all we do is kind of work on this and hash it out. But take these back and kind of think about them, and let's see if we can strive on getting something that's really close together. Because like I'm seeing library books on at least 3 of them.
Sarah gave me hers, but she's
Okay.
kind of has, she says she's still cut it up a little bit.
Okay. Okay, so she's got return library books, lost damaged books. So I can scan this and email this one out to everybody so that you've got it as well.
Here, Denise, I brought mine too.
Okay.
But I think mine's identical to Cypress, and Manzanita and I look pretty similar.
Yeah, these two are girls and
And mine looks just like yours, Pam.
Yeah.
They're really close at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably got it from Pam last time.
So those 3 look like they're really,
Well, that's fine. Mine still says Whitney on it, but she probably got it from Pam.
yeah.
I'm like, it's always good when it looks like Pam.
I know, you're like, done, check it off.
So those 3 might be good to start because they're not quite in the same order. These 2 look like they're, but and I kind of showed Robert some of what has already been done, and he likes that idea too. So I don't know if maybe we should. What is your time like on the teacher work days, or when they're staff development days, when they're gone off site?
in August,
Yeah.
usually a line of people out the door and the office clerk's not back yet.
So is,
How do you really feel?
And those teachers sneak in, it's like, you're not supposed to be here bugging me. Don't they sneak in on those days and bug in?
It's have the door locked.
Sorry. The teachers allowed.
so is there a time that anybody can think of that might be a good, maybe before the school year is done, or, because we're already coming back here on the 12th to work on scheduling, and your rollover prep needs to be done by the 20th. So I don't know, does June look okay to try and get together to go over this, or?
Would have to be that, probably that second weekend or week in June, because I know a few people are leaving early.
Yeah, my last day's the 15th.
Isn't that?
It's the 20th.
20th is our last day, but if you worked on the 8th, you may have chosen to take the 20th off, which I did.
I'm off the 19th in January.
And nobody here comes back in July other than maybe Amy, right?
I do too.
You do too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I haven't seen it come out, but I'm pretty it has to be the first, right? Because it's 2 weeks before school starts.
We already have the kickoff on the 2nd, right? A welcome back or whatever.
That's,
August 2nd?
no, that's usually like,
I thought you sent us out a notice.
oh, yes, our,
August
yeah,
2nd?
that one. Yeah, our kickoff meeting's on the 2nd. So do we want it incorporated into that?
Yeah.
Okay. August 2nd, we already have our kickoff meeting. So we can,
So we need
So-
to just ask our clerks to come in on that day.
Yeah, because we already, she has us coming that way, so.
Yeah.
That would.
yeah, so
Somebody
just double
just,
mind. Yeah, remind them.
Or lock the door for the quick sign up, because nobody's passed back to us.
Right. So we will revisit and take a look at these and maybe see about actually where we can go. And then if we can't get it done on the 2nd, then,
We're out of time if it's
Yeah.
gonna be for the following June.
yeah, then, maybe we can pick another day and try and work on it. Revisit on 8/2. Okay, then, one last thing. I've kind of been, I'm on a couple of different listservs. One's for CalPads, one's for Aeries, and I see different conversations going on. And one of them I've seen going on is about CUMs and sending them out. So I wanted to kind of get a feeling from you guys. When it comes to sending out that CUM record, or requesting a record, what have your experiences been for receiving records from out of state? Are you getting the whole CUM folder, or are you getting bits and pieces? Are you getting,
A lot of out-of-state or bits and pieces,
Or not,
photocopies, not even
exactly.
the
They won't
originals.
give us back what we send them. We've had families that move there and then they move back.
Texas keeps
They
them.
won't, yeah, so does like Kentucky and Tennessee.
Nevada.
I think I
Yeah.
had one in Minnesota or something like that too.
So all you get back is a little bit of a photocopy of your CUM that was nice and had a lot in it.
so then, how about from California schools?
Most of them send the file. I haven't had a problem in California, just
The hardest
out-of-state.
part for me is to get that confidential file.
Yeah.
From
Because
school.
some, they're kept at the district, some are kept at the school site.
But I think your record request hopefully will help with that.
Yeah.
Since it mentions it.
Yeah, because, actually, looking in, so what I'm hearing is also when they're going out of state and they come back to us, you're not getting what you send them.
They just send you a couple pages of photocopies. That's crazy. Not your original file.
Because when I look at Ed Code, it talks about basically the district, so us, keeping the original of the CUM. When they go to a California school, then yes, we send the
File
whole,
follows in
the file
California.
follows them with California. But if they go out of state, then we send them copies. And so I've started to really think about that, because I remember when I was in the office as well, that I would send my whole folder out of state and I wouldn't get it back. And there was a couple of times that I called and I got stinky with them and said, hey, do I need to get my superintendent to call your superintendent to send me back what I sent you? And I would get my file back. But, so the thought is, is that a direction that we should start going and have a list either based off of what we've done up for the CUM request, to where we send them copies of the immunization, the birth certificate, the attendance records, the discipline records, maybe their most recent test results.
And send the whole original CUM over to you.
Yeah,
And transcripts. of grade- of grades.
well,
For out of state.
for yours, you would have transcripts, yes. Stellar would have transcripts as well. But, yeah, no one else will have transcripts because the elementary transcript is a joke.
And then would you house the original CUM here if they went out of state?
Yeah, well, that's where, my thought is going, but then I've got to kind of think about where am I going to keep them? I might have to retake over my section in the portable, but I don't really like the idea of them being out there because I just moved all the dead files from out there and brought them in. But there's been some conversation of possibly digitizing. So if I can get the dead files digitized that I know I can't locate them in CalPads, or, then I can maybe, even if they're digitized, then I could put those out in the portable. But,
I mean, is that gonna be a lot, how many is that like on average?
well, and that's kind of, what percentage, how,
Not a lot.
There's not a lot of out of state.
That's just California, people are gonna start leaving real soon. All of my students that are leaving are moving out of state,
I have 4 going out of state.
all of mine.
So if we just photocopy and send and keep their file, that's a great idea, because if they return, we'll never see it again.
It's
Yeah,
especially
that's
concerning
weird.
for the special ed files, because Nevada will not even return the special ed file.
Oh, and that's.
And I couldn't believe that when they told me that.
well, in the confidential, should the only thing that gets sent to them is a copy of the most recent IEP, or do they need?
No, that's
The whole-
illegal. They are required by law. United States, it's not just.
Right, that's.
So are we required to send the whole file for confidential?
I don't
Could you send the
believe we
most
can
recent
send, we can
IEP?
send the most recent,
Triennial
and if they request like the
and
psych report.
Then do you keep, you keep the P?
Well, then it would all have to go
Oh, go.
to her to be housed. Because we don't have room, and I know there's not
Which
a
might
spot
not
in
be a
our
bad
site.
thing, because now we're not sending the red, thick file anymore. So remember, ladies, when you guys send out your 8th graders and package those up, you're gonna take them out of that red confidential folder that we're now using, and you're just gonna bandage them up with a rubber band.
Right,
I
because we
stick
save
Because those are
the,
like $4.
yeah, we save the $3.99 folders.
So we're not sending those out.
I stick them back in one of the cute jackets and just put a rubber
Exactly.
band around it and keep
Yeah.
that nice.
Even if they're staying within the district, you still want us to do that?
If they're staying within our district and they're just moving, per site,
Okay.
we're fine. But anything like high school,
Or
8th graders,
Anderson or anything like that,
Anderson,
keep that nice
outside
red
of-
file.
Yeah.
Okay, so what,
So maybe check
I'm
if we
looking
just
at
need
the
to
end of
send
your
that.
CUM thing, so I've got place confidential files at the back of the corresponding CUM. So remove from red jacket,
red jacket, if they're out of our Reading School District.
So that would be
this
8th
is
grade
8th graders going to
Sequoia.
Shasta High.
Yes.
Ours have been, maybe they were supposed to be converted, and we were supposed to put it in the fireproof cabinets, but ours haven't been converted yet. Are they gonna get converted? No. Somebody
They
was,
should be. I know that Fred has been working on getting fireproof cabinets for everybody at all the sites. And they should be moved over and really should have already happened. So,
okay, but I mean, they haven't been converted from the pink, the shocking pink, to the official red.
Sequoia's last.
Oh, we're last, okay.
So actually, next week, you're gonna have all of yours.
Oh,
converted
okay,
To the red confidential.
Yes.
With the exceptions of 8th grade.
okay,
Those will probably just stay,
okay.
but Patricia, you'll see her next week, and she'll come over
I didn't know that was happening. Okay, thank you.
Christina, can you check if we could just send the most recent IEP, that stuff, and then we're gonna keep the file and give it to Denise?
for,
Like when a student leaves and goes out of state, do they need that whole confidential?
I'll
that
check
we
with
never get
Kim
back?
and find out from her whether or not we're able to,
Keep it and
To
just send
keep
a
it.
copy. of
and
it.
what's actually technically required.
And let Denise know so she can let us on
Because I know in the past, in
That would be
some
nice.
schools out of state even, they put it on the request, do not send original file.
You
want
will not
copies
get it back,
only.
yeah.
A few of us, I can't recall what schools, I think they were in Oregon or
We don't have to send it all.
Oregon copies.
Oregon sends back.
Oregon does, yeah.
That is weird.
Yeah, so like,
I'll find out.
Texas and Minnesota are
That's so funny, that they're all, like, you'd think it would be a universal, like,
No, just to this
well, I think
central
part of it has to do with the
electronic place.
postage.
Wow.
Because that's what Florida
Do it
told
COD,
me.
bro, do it COD, we won't.
Florida told me that they weren't paying the postage anymore.
Dang, that's when you know a state's hurting.
But currently on ours, we have pre-send complete student records, CUM folder, health insert, confidential file, by mail, fax, or inter-district mail if applicable. So we're saying that they could fax it to us.
I'm getting quite a few lately that call and say, can I email the whole file to you?
Yeah.
I've gotten lots by email. They just upload the whole file.
Yeah, that works too.
And I imagine Denise, you're gonna add for 5th grade if they're not staying in RMC. For the red
Yeah,
files
for the
too,
red files.
if they're going to like UPrep instead of. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, good luck with that.
Good point.
So,
Point taken, but somehow.
Yeah.
So would it be safe to say that 100% of the CUMs you send out of state don't come back when the student returns?
No.
Oregon sends back. I've gotten
Very
Oregon.
few send them back.
So maybe 90%? You said Oregon does send back? Okay. And then we said that we're just getting copies anytime we get somebody from out of state, right?
Minimal too.
Pretty sad. Yeah, you got like an 8th grader and I get like 6 pages.
Terrible
Pretty sad
copies,
piece
too.
too.
Well,
It's really
You get like
sad.
5 pieces of paper.
Yeah.
What they're sending, is it shots, birth certificate, attendance, discipline?
Most recent report card or some type of testing, and just the most recent.
Which by ed code, that is all that is required. Because
That's all they send us.
okay, so I can kind of talk to Cindy, and so from California schools, no problems. We're getting what we need. We're getting the full file, right? Okay, so I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys and find out, because, you know, my thought is, you know, if they're not sending us our stuff back, why should we continue sending it? And based on ed code, we really shouldn't be sending it out of state anyway. So I just need to talk and find out. It might be, I need to get rid of a cabinet and get another drawer thing. I can probably look in the RAL log to see how many he's got leaving to go out of state.
Yeah. I get a hand.
There's not home in, so. Okay. So is there anything else that we need to talk about? You know, save the date, August 2nd, 8 to 12 will be in the PDC. And that's your kickoff meeting, part 1 with me. Don't forget you're coming back on Tuesday for the business office.
Yes. These printouts are great.
Yes.